that I can find in the recent past. I think it's the longest one is 8 days away, but some polls don't come out very often. The best number and a little commentary on each. In the national race, in the battleground poll, Trafalgar has Joe Biden up 3.2% over Donald Trump. 3 days ago, Trafalgar had Donald Trump ahead by 2. So clearly we have volatility in the poll that did best the last time around. You've got to get out and vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com will tell you where. We have early voting underway as we speak, and I think most of the places it only goes through Saturday. But early voting is critical. I've been looking at John Ralston's numbers from Nevada. It's extraordinary how many people are voting early. But in Arizona, where Martha McSally is running, Georgia, where David Purdue is running, Michigan, where John James is running, Minnesota, where Jason Lewis is running, Ohio, where I can't believe Ohio's in play, but Ohio needs your vote. You got to get out there and vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com will tell you how to do that, where to go, and how to help someone also get out the vote. It's the largest get out the vote effort on the conservative side ever. Right now, commit to take yourself and one person to the polls. Do a little or do a lot. Go to KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Let me run down the other numbers. Tom Cotton is underperforming. He's on a little bit later today, and he's only up 55 points in Arizona. It's Tom Cotton, 75, and whoever he's running against, 20. So I think we've got to get on the senator's case a little bit. John Cornyn is up 10 points in Texas. Mitch McConnell is up 9 points in Kentucky, and I believe these polls overweight Democrats. I always believe that, so I think you can always add in 2 or 3. In Kentucky, they were off 5 years ago for Matt Bevin by, I think, 11 points. I can't recall. But those 3 are in the bag, those 4, Cotton, Cornyn, and McConnell, as well as Dr. Marshall in Kansas, Congressman Marshall, now up 4, and I believe they're undercounting there as well. Now, let me go through the one. And Lindsey Graham is up 8 in South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, don't get complacent. You're a deep red state. You're a great state. You've got great governors, great senators, Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham, but don't get complacent. Let's put it away and put it away a lot. One thing, it will sting. The Democrats have spent more than, I think it's $150 million now against Lindsey Graham. And they're just trying to buy a seat. That's happening in a few places like Maine, which I'll come to in a second. But get out there and vote, South Carolina, for Lindsey Graham. He's a great judiciary chairman. It got Justice Barrett onto the court in record time in a fair and full process that no one can complain about. I mean, they'll complain about it, but not fairly. Lindsey Graham up by 8. Now let me run down the close ones. Jason Lewis in Minnesota is down by 1 in a Survey USA poll a week ago. So Minnesota, get out and vote. Susan Collins is down by 4 in a Colby College vote, but she has won every debate, and she had a great debate last night. I mean, Sarah Gideon, who she is running against, was a legislative leader in Maine and was presented with a very serious allegation of one member of her caucus preying on young girls. And she didn't do anything. And Susan Collins called her on it last night, and here is Sarah Gideon going, abba dabba dabba, cut 16.
So, Ms. Gideon, why didn't you push for the ethics investigation or take other action as soon as you learned about the allegations? Why did you wait until the information became public? You have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. So, I want to start by saying that I think that these commercials and these allegations just show exactly how much Susan Collins has changed and that she will do anything to stay in Washington. Look, I take the issue of children staying safe and sexual predation incredibly seriously. I have a 16 and 17-year-old boy at home and a 13-year-old girl at home. And I have spent my legislative time making sure that I am keeping children safe as well. Now, here are the facts. When there was an allegation that came forward, and it was anonymous still, I did immediately call on the state representative to resign. And I find it ironic that Senator Collins and her allies, dark money allies, continue to bring this forward when she has defended people like Brett Kavanaugh and President Donald Trump.
What's remarkable, she didn't answer. Why did she not get an investigation going forward? Why did she not? She said she called on the legislator to resign. That was after it was made public. So she failed on that. Then comes up the most important issue facing the United States Senate if the radical left has its way, and Sarah Gideon will be a Chuck Schumer puppet. Cut number 17, it is Sarah Gideon responding and Susan Collins on whether or not they will pack the Supreme Court.
Do you think the number of justices on the Supreme Court should change? Speaker Gideon, to you first.
Any proposal to change what the Supreme Court looks like, I will evaluate through this lens. Does it help us restore an independent judiciary? Right now, as I see the proposals come forward, I just see an argument between Democrats and Republicans that doesn't get us there.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, I'll give you a straightforward answer and not beat around the bush. The answer is I do not support increasing the size of the Supreme Court. As Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, 9 is a good number, and that's the number it's been since 1869.
Okay.
We should not pack the court.
Thank you.
Bingo! Susan Collins is such a great senator. And by the way, she voted against Amy Coney Barrett because she didn't want the vote to occur before the election. And Maine, you're listening to me, Maine. I'm going to say this a lot. You cannot not vote for the most effective senator in the United States Senate, Susan Collins. Now, David Perdue last night just took John Ossoff, the youngster, to the cleaners because John Ossoff has been taking, you got it, Chinese money. Cut number 18.
Responsibility. Clearly, China was responsible for this. And we've learned a lot about the virus, who's most vulnerable, what we need to do to protect them, and so forth. But what we have to do is hold China accountable. And John Ossoff will not be the one to do that. Because in the last 2 years, he's actually been working for a company owned by the communist Chinese government. And yet in the last debate, he denied that. So the question tonight is, moving forward, instead of...
Okay, cut number 19. David Perdue drills down.
Did you or not, did you work for that Chinese communist company? PCCW is a media company in Hong Kong that's owned by China Unicom and owned by the Chinese government. So the question is, for the last 2 years, he's been working on. That's on top of working for Al Jazeera for the last decade.
Mr. Ossoff, I'll let you answer that, and then we'll move on to the next question.
As I predicted, Senator Perdue doesn't want to talk about COVID-19, a pandemic that has killed nearly 250,000 Americans. He is going to spend this entire debate deflecting from a substantive conversation about the most serious public health crisis in generations. He will launch false attacks, he'll make outlandish allegations, he'll repeat the same 6 words over and over and over again because it's what his handlers in Washington have trained him to do, to evade responsibility and avoid a substantive discussion of where we go forward now to contain this virus. And here's the answer. We put the medical experts and public health experts in charge, not failed and disgraced politicians like David Perdue.
Thank you for your time. We're going to move on to the next question.
I think I get a response. He named me in that answer.
Very quickly.
Well, again, he talks about taking responsibility, but he won't do that. He misled the people of Georgia in the primary. This is really important here because it goes to trust and judgment. If you want somebody to represent you in the United States Senate, you better hope they have good judgment and that you can trust them. He misled everybody in the primary. He then refiled after the primary was over and is now told the legal document that he filed says that he indeed worked for that company, even though before, in our last debate, he said he did not. And if that's confusing, go to my website, PurdueSenate.com, and you'll get that cleared up, and you'll see why he's not wanting to answer the question and why he won't take his own advice about taking responsibility.
Cut number 20, David Perdue brings down the hammer.
But I'm here to tell you that there is a document, and I have it right here. This is his July filing where he disclosed to the federal government that he, in fact, did work for them. Now, there's a responsibility here he needs to own up to because sooner or later, we need somebody in the United States Senate that will stand up to communist China.
Now, look,
Thank you,
I
Senator.
can tell you right now, I have never taken money from the Chinese Communist Party, from any entity that is operating in China, nor solicited any funds from any such company, nor have I ever asked for work from a Chinese company, nor have I ever had anything to do with it. It's very easy to answer. If you haven't got Chinese money in your background, it's very easy to say I've got nothing to do with the CCP and the PRC. Very, very easy to do. John Ossoff can't do that because he did in fact take money from a Chinese filmmaker that is owned and operated by a company owned and operated by the CCP. David Perdue is right. You couldn't vote for John Ossoff, Atlanta. Get out there, vote early for David Perdue. More coming up on these races when we return to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to hughhewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Speaking to the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. So, in a nutshell, I mean, you said you were, the Proud Boys were essentially guys who get together and drink and cuss and et cetera, et cetera. But what do you stand for?
So, what we simply stand for, it's very easy. We are a group that is very pro-family, and the way that we promote that is we want to make better men, right? Whether that means make better brothers, make better husbands, make better fathers. A statistic that I bring up is, mass shootings are horrible, right? And 23 of the past 26 mass shootings have something in common, and it's not what the Democrats have been preaching about, how they acquired a gun or background checks or anything. 23 of the past 26 mass shooters come from fatherless homes. It's a culture problem that you can't legislate your way out of. So what we do is we promote masculinity is what we do. We promote the family. So that's our main purpose. Now, we have members. We have across the world. We have 22,000 members, probably more now after Joe Biden's advertisement on the first debate. But we could stretch ourselves in many different directions. Whether it's on the legislative side, we have Proud Boys that are running for Congress. We have Proud Boys that are pastors. I'm currently right in front of the White House. We do things that typically you don't think conservatives do.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I am feeling pretty emotional today, but I understand that nothing matters. None of the speculation, the analysis matters. You know what matters? Your decision to go vote and save this country. I don't like using overheated rhetoric, but it's all on the line right now. It's on the line as you vote. And if you voted for a political party that fails to condemn the decision to loot stores, to steal from stores because a man was shot in an encounter with police, I bet you've got buyer's remorse, don't you? Because you know the difference. We all know the difference between the two political ideologies. We know the difference between the two political parties. That's why you can't futz around and play games by, I'm mad at Lindsey Graham over Obamagate, so I want the liberal Democrat to win in South Carolina. The reason they're playing games in South Carolina is because they desperately want Lindsey Graham to lose. And Lindsey Graham, believe me, South Carolina and the country is in a lot better shape with United States Senator Lindsey Graham than United States Senator Jamie Harrison. That's one of many examples throughout the country. Example after example. You know something? We can go down a rabbit hole on a lot of this stuff. We can get distracted very easily.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, you got to rise up. I got to tell you, the best data point of the day yesterday for Republicans came from John Ralston, maybe the most respected political reporter, state-specific political reporter in America. And everyone is listening in Nevada right now, and I'm on from 3 to 6 in the morning in Nevada, which is when the strip gets going, right? That's when everyone goes home. John Ralston posted yesterday, Republicans are up in the rural voting by 30,000 ballots. Nearly 28 percentage points above, right? Nearly 28 percentage points above, with half the vote in, above 2016. Trump won rural Nevada by 58,000 votes in 2016. I have said it could be as much as 70,000 this cycle. I may have underestimated. Now, John Ralston is among the most respected state-specific Nevada political reporters in the U.S. I point to this because if rural vote is doing this in Nevada, and it is, Ralston's not wrong, I expect the rural vote is doing it everywhere in the United States. So the question is, did pollsters adjust their models enough when it comes to rural voting? They blew it 4 years ago. Chuck Todd and others have told me that NBC and other places have adjusted. Did they adjust it enough? John Ralston is showing us an extraordinary turnout in Nevada. Now, I was going through the numbers. Tom Tillis, best number, he's up by 2 points. But I expect North Carolina rallies and the rural vote to help him over the finish line. Joni Ernst is up 1 in Iowa. It's a rural state. I think she's going to be fine. The best poll for John James in Michigan, the underdog, African-American, West Point graduate who flew Apache helicopters, a businessman, shows him up 2.2 points. It's a Trafalgar point. Poll. A lot of Democrats do not believe in Trafalgar. I think they are working very hard to get it right. Trump is leading in Michigan as well, and both tickets were in Michigan yesterday, and both tickets were in Nevada yesterday. That tells me a lot. Cory Gardner's best poll is he's down 8 points. He's joining me a little bit later in the program, I believe. We'll talk to him about he makes a comeback. Yeah, Cory Gardner just crucified Jack from Twitter yesterday. I'm going to play that in the next segment. Martha McSally is up 3 in Arizona in her best poll. Steve Daines is up 3 in the New York Times poll, which is great because the New York Times always favors Democrats. Jason Lewis in Minnesota is only down 1 in a Survey USA poll. You got to get out and vote in the Twin Cities. I told you that John Cornyn, Tom Cotton, Mitch McConnell, Dr. Marshall in Kansas, they're comfortably ahead like Lindsey Graham. So the Senate is so much better than it was a week ago, but only if Americans continue to turn out. And you find out where to turn out by going to absolutely today, keepamericaamerica.com. By the way, we learned yesterday, we had a horrible story this morning. I hate to tell you this, but an Islamist killed 3 people in a French church in Nice with a knife, beheading one of them today. It just reminds us of the world we live in, why you need pro-defense Republicans running the Senate and Trump in the White House. Anonymous was revealed yesterday. It was great fun to watch because Anonymous turned out to be a low-level, dime a dozen political appointee whose name I honestly cannot remember as I sit here. I was underwhelmed yesterday. He's made a little noise before. I can't remember his name. And Donald Trump said this about him yesterday. Miles Taylor, I'm reminded in my ear, is his name. You'll never have heard about him. Donald Trump said this about Anonymous, cut number 11.
To show you how corrupt the Washington media is, I was just, and did you see this? This was just revealed. It was just revealed that, Anonymous, this Anonymous that everybody's been looking for, that law enforcement could have found early if they wanted to, but everybody was looking for Anonymous. Turned out to be a low-level staffer, a sleazebag, who's never worked in the White House. Anonymous was a nobody, a disgruntled employee who was quickly removed from his job a long time ago for...
All right, now stop there. I want you to understand why this is so unethical. Not only did the New York Times and Anonymous oversell the significance of this individual, the anonymity led to the moving of a friend of mine. Victoria Coates left the White House where she was invaluable on the staff and went to another agency because there was some concern she was anonymous. When people do this, they injure people's lives. They ruin other people's fortunes and futures. Now, Victoria's fine. She's doing great. But it injured her career. She loved being on the NSC. So I just got to tell you people, don't ever look up to anyone like this. someone who makes money by pretending to be influential and they're not. It's disgraceful. He should leave town. I'll be right back with the latest on the market. Big sell-off yesterday, big day coming today. Stay tuned. This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short case for backing the Trump-Pence ticket and voting for Republican senators and representatives in your state. On the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has done as well as any president could have done, and certainly better than Joe Biden. You're safer and more secure because of the Trump military buildup. The president has made the necessary pivot with China, and he's brokered the first major peace deal in the Middle East in 25 years. On the economy, Trump and the GOP succeeded in bringing unemployment to all-time lows early this year. Now, even amidst the pandemic, the economy is bouncing back. Your First and Second Amendment freedoms are much stronger as well because Trump has bolstered the Supreme Court and federal courts with strong judges who honor the Constitution. Whatever you think of Trump personally, there's no question. His policies have been good for the country. Join me in voting for a second Trump term. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
To say that when you say that your son's laptop, which now we know, we have various levels of proof and evidence that it is the laptop, that the emails are real. At this point, in other words, last night, to say it's Russian disinformation, it is just a level of desperation for him to say this that I have to say, doesn't it just admit he has no answer, there can be no answer, and he is going to stick to this lie, cynically believing enough Americans will believe it to vote for him, and he doesn't have to answer the question because the media will not press him on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Eric. And isn't it shocking that a presidential candidate will stand there and say that instead of saying the truth, taking responsibility, and actually answering the question directly? And even if he wants to excuse away fact or try to put some kind of, context that couches it a little bit better, but just to blatantly, flat out lie. And it's a knowing lie. It's something that is just so shocking. And you see, and I think that where you went to the media is absolutely part of the problem here, because the media refuses to hold Joe Biden accountable. They are complicit in this because he is, of course, their preferred candidate. They are trying so hard, the media and big tech, to push Joe Biden over the line because they are all in this together and they want globalism. That's really the goal here, is that they want to obfuscate American sovereignty. They don't want your and my rights, individual rights, to be protected.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. President Trump is referring to the widely shared clip of Joe Biden threatening to fire a prosecutor because they were looking into his son's business dealings. Play cut 25.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
And throughout the entire impeachment investigation process, Americans found that Hunter Biden was working for the Burisma, Ukrainian energy company Burisma, for $83,000 a month. Now, Americans know that he had no experience in that sector at all whatsoever. So that was where we stopped the story. But Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley last month released a Senate report investigating the money flows from foreign governments to Hunter Biden. So here's where Hunter Biden makes his money, and with it, Joe Biden. A $3.5 million wire from the mayor of Moscow's wife, a $100,000 spending account with a Chinese businessman, $1.4 million from his time on the board of Burisma, and $4.7 million in consulting fees from a Chinese Communist Party-linked company, and a $5 million forgivable unsecured loan not reported to the IRS from the Chinese Communist Party. And this was largely ignored from the activist media. But then Hunter Biden gave us a gift. He gave us his laptop. He said, please, take it. I don't want my dad to be president. Please.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I have been looking at these early voting numbers and the mail-in ballot numbers. I don't know how, I'm going to ask Chuck Todd this later, how any states can be called that allow mail-in ballot on Tuesday night. Now, I'm going to be hosting Salem's nationwide coverage on Tuesday night, and then I'm going to work for NBC from midnight to 4 a.m., And I know it's traditional. I've always loved it. I've done it for Salem since 2000, and I did it for NBC 2016. I'm doing it again in 2020. I love it. I love election night. But I honestly do not know how any state can be called. Yesterday, the Supreme Court upheld a North Carolina ruling that mail-in ballots can be counted up to 6 days after the election, provided they are postmarked on election day. That doesn't bother me, by the way. None of this stuff bothers me. I do not believe that people are out there mailing in ballots late. I don't believe it. If it's not close, they can't cheat. And I think the rural vote's going to send Tom Tillis and David Perdue comfortably to re-election. And I believe the rural vote's going to put Susan Collins in, and the rural vote is going to propel Steve Daines to a big win and Martha McSally to a win. May get Cory Gardner back into the race. He's pretty significantly behind. We'll talk with Cory Gardner later. I believe it makes John James viable, very viable in Michigan, possibly the big upset special of the night. Jason Lewis in Minnesota is another upset special of the night. John Ralston's rural voting, but I just don't know how we're going to know. I want to prepare you for that. I don't know how we're going to know. I also want to prepare you for this. Yesterday, and this is brought to you by Birch Gold, HughGold.com if you want to own precious metals, HughGold.com. Or you can text my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747, and Birch Gold Group will send you all the information on transferring, I suggest 10 to 25% of your IRA into precious metals, or owning physical gold in a safety deposit box, not at home. You can buy physical gold from Birch Gold, or you can transfer your IRA or 401k via HughGold.com. So the market report is brought to you by HughGold.com. Yesterday was a slaughter on Wall Street. The Dow went down almost 1,000 points, or 3.4%. NASDAQ went down 426.3.73. S&P went down 119.3.53. Overseas this morning, England and Germany are both green. Gold is down to 1878, and the 10-year Treasury is at 0.78, and oil is at barely, well, it's not even at $36, at $35.99. COVID has people panicked. They're afraid the economy won't. Well, we're going to get a GDP number tomorrow or Monday. I don't know which day it comes in. I think it's tomorrow. And it's going to show that the economy is cooking. And I believe that there are huge winners and losers in this, but the overall economy is cooking. I just think that today, after the market closes, we're going to get returns, earnings from Amazon, the only stock I own. Everything else is mutual funds. Twitter, Facebook, Google, and Apple. Maybe Twitter doesn't report today. Maybe it's only Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google. And I think they're going to blow away the market because they are the winners in the great transition from brick and mortar to online. Walmart and Target is also in there. They're going to be big winners. And the cloud business. Microsoft had huge earnings. And so yesterday was the sell-off before the storm up, in my view. That's a prediction. I'm not a prophet nor the son of the prophet, and I don't invest beyond Amazon because I don't know enough. I spend my day reading about politics and government and history, and a lot of people spend their day reading about technical factors on the market and quarterly reports and research reports. And I realize I don't know what they know. So how in the world am I going to invest against them? On emotion? That's stupid. But mutual fund managers, they know what they're doing. But I have one great opinion. And my great opinion is that Amazon is the company of the world. And so I invest in Amazon because I like to follow one stock. I read all the reports on one stock. I used to do it with Apple. I got it out of Apple. I moved into Amazon because you're a layman like me. It's kind of fun to follow one stock. But when I'm digging down into these numbers, and Lindsey Graham +8, John James +2.2 in Trafalgar, Joni Ernst up 1, Martha McSally up 3 in Susquehanna, Steve Daines in Montana up 3 in the New York Times, Jason Lewis behind 1 in Survey, Tom Cotton up 55 points, Dr. Marshall ahead comfortably in Kansas, McConnell running away in Kentucky, Cornyn running away in Texas, Lindsey Graham running away in South Carolina, Susan Collins neck and neck, down 4 in the Colby College poll, but I don't know how you poll a state with the funky voting that Maine has with the second choice preference. And then Susan Collins winning handily in the debate last night. And the rural vote mattering the way it does, as John Ralston pointed out in Nevada. That demonstrates what I do all day, right? I read politics, government history, and for amusement. I had Dr. Al Mohler on today and Jerry Boyer on for a taped interview. I had to read their books yesterday. That's what I do. You can't cover the market. So you got to trust people who do, but you can trust gold. Birchgold.com. Now I want to go to Ron Johnson with Fox Business yesterday, saying something to Maria Bartiromo that I wrote in the Post a week ago about Joe Biden and Tony Bobulinski, cut number 1.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of special counsels, but if Joe Biden wins the presidency, I don't see how you avoid one. Otherwise, this is going to be tucked away. We will never know what happened. All this evidence is going to be buried. So I think we'd have to have a special election if Joe Biden wins.
The trouble with that is it will be immediately viewed as revenge. That's why it should be appointed now. I hope the Attorney General appoints a special counsel now for the Biden family and the Tony Bobulinski allegations and the laptop. If it's not true, they're not true. But I remind you what I said yesterday. And by the way, lawyers are welcome to call 1-800-520-1234. I only want to hear from practicing lawyers what they think about Bobulinski and Biden's. If you follow the story, the only people I want to hear from are people who have a law license, and I will test you. I know how to figure it out. 1-800-520-1234. I have my theory of the case, which is Bobulinski was screwed by the Bidens, and this is a revenge move, but it's true. That's my theory of the case. It could be disproven if Joe Biden would answer a couple of questions, if Jim Biden would. Jim Biden came out of his house yesterday. I'm not going to tell you where he lives, but he came out of his house and some enterprising reporters were there and they shouted at him and he ran back inside. That's evidence. That's evidence. Very easy to walk over and say, I don't know Tony Bobulinski. I've never met him. It's like John Ossoff last night in Georgia could have said, I've never taken money from the Chinese Communist Party. He could have just said that. It's like Susan Gideon in Maine could have just said, I'm against court packing, the way that Susan Collins said. Can we play that again? I just love this because I love Susan. Susan Collins is smart. Boy, is she smart. Cut number 7. No, cut number 7. 17.
Do you think the number of justices on the Supreme Court should change? Speaker Gideon, to you first.
Any proposal to change what the Supreme Court looks like, I will evaluate through this lens. Does it help us restore an independent judiciary? Right now, as I see the proposals come forward, I just see an argument between Democrats and Republicans that doesn't get us there.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, I'll give you a straightforward answer and not beat around the bush. The answer is I do not support increasing the size of the Supreme Court. As Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, 9 is a good number, and that's the number it's been since 1869.
Okay.
We should not pack the court.
Thank you.
I love that. We should not pack the court. Way to go, Senator Collins. Now, when I come back, I'm going to play Cory Gardner just taking Jack Dorsey to the cleaners yesterday. But Donald Trump made a point yesterday that I want you to hear. Cut number 8.
But I'm not just running against Joe Biden. I'm running against the left-wing mob and the left-wing media, the big tech giants. And I'm also running against the rhinos. Do you know what a rhino is? A rhino may be the lowest form of human life.
Just a little understatement by Donald Trump. Number 9, Donald Trump in Bullhead City.
It's a powerful party, and the party is totally joined with the fake news media, the lamestream media right there. And they're totally joined with the big tech. I don't know, Section 230. Does anyone know what Section 230 you do? Section 230, I think, wow. You know, tremendous corruption on behalf of the Biden, tremendous. Do you know you can't find it anywhere in the media other than the New York Post, which I'm very proud of, and they endorsed me the other day too, by the way. But you can't find it anywhere in the media, anywhere.
Right, you can't except center-right media like me. I want to talk to you about Alliance Defending Freedom. I'm down to 2 days left for you to help Alliance Defending Freedom. Their website is over at hughhewitt.com. I need to raise about $5,000 today to do right by ADF. Larry Elder, my colleague, got a note from Dana. Hi, Larry. I have a message for the parents of college students. I'm the mother of 3 college students, have another applying now for next fall. As you can imagine, our coffers are a bit low with all the tuition going out all the house, but we just gave to ADF. My sons and daughters have shared the real-life drama of being on campus as a conservative, and I can see how easily any of our conservative kids could have become targets of the left and end up in a court case. I just want to encourage all parents of college students to give to ADF now, please. We need to have each other's backs. College is expensive enough, but can you imagine paying for a defense lawyer against a university? We really can't afford not to help ADF defend the Constitution and perhaps even our own children. Thank you for highlighting the work ADF is doing for us. Dana, Southwest Washington State. Well, thank you, Dana. Because ADF is there for everyone. They represent their clients for free, and we need them. They've won 11 cases in the Supreme Court since 2010. Alliance Defending Freedom represents people for free because of donors like you. Can you please call right now, 866-359-9644, and give your best gift? Like I said, I'd like to raise $5,000, maybe even $50,000 a day. Maybe someone out there knows what ADF does. They've been meaning for years to step up. You know, if big tech would do one thing, simply support both left and right. If they gave cuts, stroke those big checks, Michael Bloomberg, not just to the gun grabbers, but to the Alliance Defending Freedom, people would just say, okay, they're supporting free speech, but they don't. We need little people like you to make the best gift you can at Alliance Defending Freedom at hughhewitt.com. Okay, time for Relief Factor. I walked 10 miles yesterday. Yes, I did. 10 miles. Why? Because after the show, I just decided it's election week, nervous energy week, and every day, it was perfect weather in D.C. as well because it was cloudy and overcast. Every day, there it goes, down the hatch with my lukewarm coffee. I Karen Kirkman, Resveratrol Omega. Did 10 miles. Good clip, too, 16-minute miles. I was not strolling. I was not running. Did my half marathon on Saturday, but 10. Why? Because you got to get rid of nervous energy this week. You really do. If you're in my business, there's too much information, like being in a waterfall of information. And so I put a book on tape, plug in the earphones, and go. And that's what I did. Thanks to ReliefFactor.com. And my knees are not barking this morning, and you ought to try it. ReliefFactor.com, $19.95 gets you started. Come right back after the break. I got to play for you Cory Gardner and Jack Dorsey on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
In this case, the Philadelphia police had body cams. In this case, the body cams apparently have been activated, although they have not been released, but other footage has been shown, apparently people filming what happened. Now, the shooting has sparked protests, some violent, some 30 Philadelphia police officers injured yesterday, some gone to the hospital, some looting has taken place. Apparently, the cops involved were white, although it's difficult to tell from looking at the footage. And as I mentioned, the suspect, 27-year-old black man, has been killed. May I ask you a few questions here? Those of you who are out in the streets in Philadelphia, Philadelphia carries our show. We get a lot of calls from Philadelphia, so please, Phil, give us a call, 888-971-SAGE, if there's anything you want to add to what I'm about ready to say, or correct what I'm about ready to say. Did I mention the man had a knife? Did I mention that the police asked him to drop the knife, told him to drop the knife several times? He doesn't drop the knife. The man's mom, by the way, is at the scene. She's trying to discourage him from charging towards the police. He charges towards the police anyway. One relative says, how come they couldn't shoot him in the leg? You shoot to stop the threat.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is so shocking, and this is what the questions have to be asked to Ray and the CIA, it's obviously an open known fact. It's openly known in China that the Bidens were open for business. They were open to be in business with the Chinese Communist Party, and that Hunter had problems not just with drugs, he had problems with sex. I mean, the thing on this hard drive that's so shocking is really the depravity. The open drug use, and really crack cocaine, which, as you know, his father wrote the law that really puts, essentially African-American men who don't use the high-end drug of cocaine, which is the drug of the elite, but use crack, it would put him in jail for much, much longer. His son is open about this. His son's been open about using this throughout the world, and clearly has a drug problem, and also has a sex problem. I mean, this thing, he's recording all this stuff. He's keeping it on the internet. He's very proud of this. Those are access points for foreign intelligence services to get you, capture you, blackmail you. And so the Biden family, through financial corruption, through being exposed financially, to basically taking all of the financing money from the Chinese Communist Party, have essentially made themselves open to capture by the Chinese Communist Party. And that's what happened. I think now people have to go back and ask tough questions. What was the relationship they had prior to Joe Biden negotiating in the pivot to Asia, the deal that the United States signed?
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Coming up after the break, I'll be talking with Annette Biggers. She's an old friend, and they now have a new movie over at salemnow.com called The Trump I Know. And it's just blown out expectations. People are watching it all over the country. Annette was the principal photographer for the show, and I've just known her forever. And I called her up and said, what in the world are you doing with this blockbuster success? And she will describe it for you. But it's over at salemnow.com. And I recommend you go there right now and give it a whirl. The Trump I Know. It will, even if you're a left-wing Trump hater, it will explain to you these crowds, these immense, enormous crowds. Now, crowds are they're anecdotal evidence, and anecdotal evidence is evidence of anecdotes. Donald Trump can draw an enormous crowd, stadium-sized crowd. Joe Biden can't, Kamala Harris can't. Doesn't tell you a thing about the voting. Tells you a lot about the energy of the Trump voters. It doesn't tell you how many there are. The Ralston data point, the 28,000 new rural voters, or I don't want to say new. There are 28,000 more rural votes in Nevada at this time this year than there was 4 years ago. 28%. Let me make sure I get the data point correct. Because we got the pod boys out there. It used to be Media Matters emo would dog me every day on something I said, but now it's the pod boys, the privileged pod boys who are they cause high school girls to faint, and I don't. Ralston report. First, Republicans are up in the rolls by 30,000 ballots, 28 percentage points with half the vote in. So there's this huge early rural vote, enormous in Nevada. I am extrapolating that if there is a huge early rural vote in Nevada, it's going to occur everywhere. And I think that's very, very, very good for Martha McSally in Arizona, and Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, and Susan Collins in Maine, and Tom Tillis in North Carolina, and David Perdue in Georgia. I think it's overwhelmingly good for Joni Ernst in Iowa. John James in Michigan is going to love that UP vote. Cory Gardner is going to look to the West Slope to make a come from behind win. Steve Daines is crushing it, obviously, in Montana. Jason Lewis is counting on Duluth. All you folks up there in Duluth who are listening to me right now, you got to get out and vote for Jason Lewis, Dr. Marshall. The rural vote, if it turns out in unprecedented numbers, changes everything. What also changes people is they really do not like big media, big tech. Senator Cory Gardner on Commerce Committee with Jack Dorsey yesterday, who owns Twitter, who runs Twitter, tied him up. Here's that cut number 2.
Mr. Dorsey, I'm going to direct these first questions to you. Mr. Dorsey, do you believe the Holocaust really happened, yes or no?
Yes.
So you would agree that someone who says the Holocaust may not have happened is spreading misinformation, yes or no?
Yes.
I appreciate your answers on this, but they surprise me and probably a lot of other Coloradans and Americans. After all, Iran's Ayatollah has done exactly this, questioning the Holocaust. And yet his tweets remain unflagged on Twitter's platform. You and I agree that moderating your platform makes sense in certain respects. We don't want the next terrorist finding inspiration on Twitter or any platform for that matter. But you've also decided to moderate certain content from influential world leaders, and I'd like to understand your decisions to do so a little bit better. Can you name any other instance of Twitter hiding or deleting a tweet from heads of state?
Not off the top of my head, but we have many examples across world leaders around the world.
Would you be willing to provide a list of those?
Absolutely.
I know we agree content moderation can have certain upsides like combating terrorism, but Twitter has chosen to approach content moderation from the standpoint of combating misinformation as well. So it's strange to me that you've flagged the tweets from the president, but haven't hidden the Ayatollah's tweets on Holocaust denial or calls to wipe Israel off the map. And that you can't recall off the top of your head hidden or deleted tweets from other world leaders. I would appreciate that list. I think it's important that we all hear that. So that brings my next question to the front. Does Twitter maintain a formal list of certain accounts that you actively monitor for misinformation?
No, and we don't have a policy against misinformation. We have a policy against misinformation in 3 categories, which are manipulated media, public health, specifically COVID, and civic integrity, election interference, and voter suppression. That is all we have policy on for misleading information. We do not have policy or enforcement for any other types of misleading information that you're mentioning.
So somebody denying the murder of millions of people or instigating violence against a country as a head of state is not categorically falling in any of those 3 misinformation or other categories Twitter has?
Not misinformation, but we do have other policies around incitement to violence, which may, some of the tweets that you mentioned or the examples that you're mentioning may fall afoul of. But for misleading information, we're focused on those 3 categories only.
So let me stop here. This doesn't, we got to get rid of Section 230. Because if you can't delete the Ayatollah Khamenei, who denies the Holocaust and incites violence against Israelis and Americans almost daily, then you don't deserve Section 230 protection. If you can't moderate that, no. you'd got to live with the libel and slander laws of the United States without protection. You are not a public forum if you are moderating some and not all. You have violated content neutrality, and you're just got to live with the libel and slander laws of the United States. It is that simple. Goodbye, Section 230. Come right back, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short case for backing the Trump-Pence ticket and voting for Republican senators and representatives in your state. On the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has done as well as any president could have done, and certainly better than Joe Biden. You're safer and more secure because of the Trump military buildup. The president has made the necessary pivot with China, and he's brokered the first major peace deal in the Middle East in 25 years. On the economy, Trump and the GOP succeeded in bringing unemployment to all-time lows early this year. Now, even amidst the pandemic, the economy is bouncing back. Your First and Second Amendment freedoms are much stronger as well because Trump has bolstered the Supreme Court and federal courts with strong judges who honor the Constitution. Whatever you think of Trump personally, there's no question. His policies have been good for the country. Join me in voting for a second Trump term. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
And I believe that many of you are as troubled as I am about the ability of mobs to do massive harm, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. This is a new America. If you were asked, make America great again, what does that mean? Well, one of the things it means is that if you steal, if you break into stores, if you set police cars on fire, and do similarly violent acts, you are arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. That's a better America. A country that allows thugs, in the name of whatever they claim, thugs to steal, burn, loot. Steal and loot are synonymous, so steal and burn will not survive as a society. There are a lot of bad people in this world. The amount of bad done in the last 100 years in the name of high ideals is greater than the amount of bad done in this world in the name of bad ideals. I think you ought to be aware of that. That's why I take actions as far more serious than rhetoric.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Want to take you to two states, South Carolina and Kentucky. You know what Democrats are doing there? In Senate races featuring Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. You know, I guess if you can't win on your own merits, you pull crap like this. A big Democratic political action committee is spending thousands and thousands of dollars promoting Constitution candidate Bill Bledsoe in South Carolina. They're calling him in the ads, and they're apparently saturating the airwaves right now. He's the only constitutional, true conservative, rather, on the ballot. Only problem is he dropped out in early October. He's not running anymore. And he endorsed Lindsey Graham. But because he's technically going to still be on the ballot, the Democrats now are trying to fool South Carolinians into believing that there is a more conservative alternative to Lindsey Graham. Because they're trying to get Jamie Harrison, the liberal Democrat, elected. That's all they're doing. They're doing the exact same thing in Kentucky. They're trying to siphon off votes from Mitch McConnell. A liberal super PAC is spending thousands of dollars pushing a libertarian named Brad Barron. The ad calls Barron a better choice for U.S. Senate who believes in freedom, liberty, and individual rights. Again, same thing. This guy's on the ballot, not viable, but since the ballots have been printed, that's what they're doing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to hughhewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
The president brought up the laptop and China. He made a couple of clear points. The moderator, who was generally very good, stepped on his punchlines, she muddied up those moments. And that to me was a pity.
Yes, and I completely agree with you that, Kristen Welker, who is the moderator, did a much better job in terms of allowing the discourse back and forth. I thought she was a lot more fair than Chris Wallace. Absolutely. But the one complaint that I had with her is the exact same thing that you pointed out, Eric, was that she did not want this laptop story to be discussed back and forth. And so every time that the president made a very clear point and was asking Joe Biden a question, she would say, oh, that's on topic. I want to stay on the race issue, or I want to stay on climate change, or, we're not talking about that right now. And she would cut in and interrupt. And I think there was some statistic where she interrupted the president about 41 times and Joe Biden only 8 times. And granted, she allowed the back and forth, the 2-minute openings where their mics were muted. That was fine. But it was very clear that she did not want any discourse about this laptop, which is so unfortunate because the American people need to understand what's going on here. I thought the president explained it incredibly well. And to have a moderator interject themselves like that is activism, and it's absolutely inappropriate. And that's something that just clearly evidences that the mainstream media has a biased agenda and that they are trying to protect Joe Biden from this story. So you have to ask yourself, why?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
President Trump was impeached by Democrats for, quote, withholding military aid to Ukraine until Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky opened an investigation into the Biden family for corruption. This was all conjecture by Democrats with no substantial proof at all whatsoever. It was all written by a bad screenplay writer, Adam Schiff. Nothing that they thought was there was actually there. This is after the Mohler investigation completely and totally backfired, and they were left with nothing. The whistleblower, Schmerella, came up with the transcript and said this is worthy of investigation. Vindman, all these guys came up and testified. Let's play cut 24. Remember when we had to read a fake call transcript because the real Trump call transcript was actually not a big deal? Play cut 24.
So you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it. On this and on that, I'm going to put you in touch with people, and not just any people. I'm going to put you in touch with Attorney General of the United States, my Attorney General, Bill Barr. He's got the whole weight.
Morning, glory, America, bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings to all of you people everywhere across the United States. This is one of those great stories. I have known my next guest, Annette Biggers, for decades. She and her family have worshipped alongside me and the fetching Mrs. Hewitt for years. We've been friends for years. I had no idea, none at all, that Annette was involved in the smash, surprise, online hit, The Trump I Know. I had no idea. And I haven't watched it. It's over at salemnow.com because I just don't have time to watch movies during the election season. But Annette sent me an email, and the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt an email said, have you got a chance to see the movie yet? And which opened my eyes. I didn't know it was there. And The Trump I Know is now available at salemnow.com. And, I mean, thousands of people are going to it. Annette got up early in California this morning. Good morning, Annette.
Good morning.
How do you like 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I'm just glad this is a radio show.
Right, well, of course. That's a good thing. Annette, I want people to know what The Trump I Know is. It's available at salemnow.com. They can go and watch it. It's on demand, $12.99. What is it? Why did you make it? What is it intended to convey?
Well, it is 20 or more women who work with Trump day in and day out, have known him for 10 to 20 years. These women are walking beside him. He's empowered their voices, and he's loved them like they're his daughters, his sisters. And boy, does it really come through in this movie. They tell a side of Donald Trump that no one knows about, and it's sad but true. 93% of his media coverage is negative, and they're telling us the truth about Donald Trump, and it is so delightful. It is a breath of fresh air, let me tell you.
The Trump I Know is at salemnow.com. So, Annette, it's an evangelical production company. They make movies from the evangelical point of view. Many of my friends inside the Manhattan Beltway media elite cannot understand, and indeed some of our mutual friends rebuke me for supporting Trump because they say he's not Christian. You shouldn't support him. He's a bad man. And they run through the known litany of all infidelity, divorce, cruelty, etc. And how can you support him? Annette, what do you say to them, and what does the movie say to them?
The movie tells you who he truly is behind closed doors and on the scene. No, the thing is he had a messy life, and he took down giants. You know, he was gentle giant, taking down this with his own hands. That looks sometimes.
You're breaking up on me, so I think you have to stay in one place if you're on your cell. Okay, go ahead. Start again. How do you answer that question about evangelical support?
Well, I feel that Trump is like a David. He had a messy life, but he was a worshiper God, and God used him to tear down walls, to kill giants. And I feel like Donald Trump is a firm wall of protection for America, for the world, to keep us from harm. And people are seeing the messiness, but I think the next 4 years is going to be peace. And I think that's the purpose of this movie, is all those that are just a little unsettled or a lot unsettled in their heart, they are going to find peace in the message of this movie. They're going to find the real man behind Donald Trump. It is not who they're thinking it is. He is an amazing man. His family is so incredible. Hugh, I can't even tell you what we have hundreds, not hundreds, but we have many, many hours, probably 80 hours of testimonies from nannies, from the Secret Service. I can't even tell you, the people that love him are just, they're telling us a different story. The people that work for him, work under him. The best story that I heard, I feel, on our journey was from a nanny for Donald Trump's grandchildren. She came to them. She was one of 100 people who applied for the job. She was a Democrat. She got the job, and she said this family loved her and treated her like a queen so much that she changed to be a Republican.
So Annette,
Service.
I want to remind people the Trump I know can be viewed, but I want to know, or I want the audience to know how it got made, because it got made in record time and through fortuitous circumstances and because of Laura Trump. So would you walk us through the backstory on the Trump I know?
Yeah, Laura Trump came to a viewing we had a year and a half ago of Unplanned. It was a movie about, it was a true movie about an abortion worker for Planned Parenthood. She came to the viewing and she met our producer, Joe Knopp. She loved the way he told this story, the way that this movie portrayed the unborn. And Mike Pence also was there, and he loved it as well. They thought that Joe was the perfect person to tell a story. They didn't hire us. It was our idea. We came to them then a year and a half later in June and asked, can we make this story? And they said yes.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised by the Trump I know success? I mean, a lot of people are watching it that I just didn't expect would watch it.
Yeah, you know, I knew it was going to be amazing during the filming. I just knew, like, we just have so many hours of incredible testimony. I knew it was going to be powerful, but the thing I didn't know is it was going to delight people because it's so positive. It's so different than people might think. It's not it's not like a movie that is negative, you know, towards the other side at all. It's more of just, who is he? Who is he really? Who is he to be your boss? You know, we have one of the women that has been managing his winery for 10 years, I think 8 years actually, and her testimony is so powerful. But Laura Trump began to open doors for us to meet these other people. We started at Laura and Eric Trump's house in New York, and we went all the way down to Tampa and met with Kayleigh McEnany in Florida, Tampa, Florida. We went on the campaign trail with all the women for Trump in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. We went to Virginia to the winery, and then we spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and then we did meet the president as well. And it just turned out in record time, like you said. Matt Thayer, our director, is a master storyteller. He put together this film. He put it together like a puzzle in 3 weeks. It takes 9 months to do something like this, and he put it together in 3 weeks. It was truly a miracle.
I want people to know Annette Biggers, 2 N's, 2 T's, 2 G's. AnnetteBiggers.com is, I think, one of the greatest photographers at work in the United States. So you were the principal photographer for the film The Trump I Know, which is at salemnow.com. Why do you support him, Annette? You're a woman of faith. You're very well known as a speaker. You're very well known as a photographer. Why does Annette Biggers, evangelical Christian, capital E, capital C, why do you support Donald Trump?
I support him because of his platform. I think he's the most Christian president we've ever had. I say that with all honesty. His platform is so Bible-based. I mean, all you have to do is look at what he's been doing and not pay attention to the media. Look at what he's done. He has done everything that God has asked him to do for the unborn, for the religious, for religious freedom. I can't like him more, Hugh.
Well, there are millions of people like Annette Biggers, but my friends in the Manhattan Beltway media elite don't believe you exist. I mean, does that annoy you?
A little bit, yeah, it does. And there's many black people that love him as well. I met so many black people while we were making this movie, just around Washington, D.C., people that just love him. And it annoys me that they don't realize that black people love him too, you know?
Do you think he's going to win?
I absolutely do think he's going to win. I think it's the call of God on his life, and I think we all have to get out and vote, but I do think he's going to win, absolutely. And I think the next 4 years are going to be 4 years of rebuilding and peace and comfort to the souls of America. I feel like we've lost our peace, and I think he's going to return it. And this movie is a gateway of returning peace to our country.
Annette Biggers, thank you for getting up so early. The Trump I Know is available at salemnow.com. Salemnow.com. Go and watch it on demand. $12.99. DVD is $12.99. Get them both for $19.99. Salemnow.com. The Trump I Know. Annette Biggers, it's one of those small world stories. I just had to cover it for you. I did not know she was a part of the film, and the film is really doing well, and I'm glad for her, the film, and for everyone who believes as Annette does. Stay tuned, America.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Want to take you to two states, South Carolina and Kentucky. You know what Democrats are doing there? In Senate races featuring Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. You know, I guess if you can't win on your own merits, you pull crap like this. A big Democratic political action committee is spending thousands and thousands of dollars promoting Constitution candidate Bill Bledsoe in South Carolina. They're calling him in the ads, and they're apparently saturating the airwaves right now. He's the only constitutional, true conservative, rather, on the ballot. Only problem is he dropped out in early October. He's not running anymore. And he endorsed Lindsey Graham. But because he's technically going to still be on the ballot, the Democrats now are trying to fool South Carolinians into believing that there is a more conservative alternative to Lindsey Graham. Because they're trying to get Jamie Harrison, the liberal Democrat, elected. That's all they're doing. They're doing the exact same thing in Kentucky. They're trying to siphon off votes from Mitch McConnell. A liberal super PAC is spending thousands of dollars pushing a libertarian named Brad Barron. The ad calls Barron a better choice for U.S. Senate who believes in freedom, liberty, and individual rights. Again, same thing. This guy's on the ballot, not viable. But since the ballots have been printed, that's what they're doing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
The president brought up the laptop and China. He made a couple of clear points. The moderator, who was generally very good, stepped on his punchlines, she muddied up those moments. And that to me was a pity.
Yes, and I completely agree with you that, Kristen Welker, who is the moderator, did a much better job in terms of allowing the discourse back and forth. I thought she was a lot more fair than Chris Wallace, absolutely. But the one complaint that I had with her is the exact same thing that you pointed out, Eric, was that she did not want this laptop story to be discussed back and forth. And so every time that the president made a very clear point and was asking Joe Biden a question, she would say, oh, that's on topic. I want to stay on the race issue, or I want to stay on climate change, or, we're not talking about that right now. And she would cut in and interrupt. And I think there was some statistic where she interrupted the president about 41 times and Joe Biden only 8 times. And granted, she allowed the back and forth, the 2-minute openings where their mics were muted, that was fine. But it was very clear that she did not want any discourse about this laptop, which is so unfortunate because the American people need to understand what's going on here. I thought the president explained it incredibly well. And to have a moderator interject themselves like that is activism, and it's absolutely inappropriate. And that's something that just clearly evidences that the mainstream media has a biased agenda and that they are trying to protect Joe Biden from this story. So you have to ask yourself, why?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube.
Welcome back, America. This is brought to you by andrewandtodd.com. It's the Wall Street Journal story of the day. The U.S. economy likely grew at a record pace in the third quarter, recovering significant ground it lost earlier to the coronavirus pandemic, close quote. Expect Donald Trump to highlight this through Election Day. Expect Joe Biden and blue check media to dismiss or not cover it. I really do believe, I don't know what the number is. We won't know the number until midway through the last hour. But I've known this was coming by virtue of the work that Andrew and Todd are doing. andrewandtodd.com. I was here at Pacific Mortgage. And now I'm talking to them about them being a business. They lend people money to buy houses or refinance houses. And I talk to Andrew once a week just to check in with Todd occasionally, but Andrew's been my friend for 20 years, so I always want to know how the business is doing. And they are doing the record level of business at 888-888-1172. They've added staff, and they're great staff, and they're keeping up, and they get your loan done in record time. That tells me underneath everything is a housing market which now leads American recoveries. And it used to be the car business, and the car business is doing fine. The used automobile business is doing great. People ask me why. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt asked me the other day, why is it so hard to buy a used car? And I tell her mass transit is out of style. People don't want to get on a subway or a bus during a pandemic until there is a vaccine. So they are buying used cars. And of course, that drives up the price of used cars. So if you don't have to buy a used car right now, you don't. But the housing market is crazy because the money is cheap. And that's great news for you. Now, what do I expect the market to do? I'm looking overseas. They know what our GDP is expected to do, but they don't believe it till they see it. And on the England and the German market, up a little bit. And we don't have the GDP number yet. So I can't tell you what it means. And I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet. I know after 4 o'clock East Coast time, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook report their earnings. And I expect at least 3 and probably all 4 to have blowout quarters. They are what they call COVID winners. There is no winner in COVID. There are beneficiaries of changed economic patterns, but there are no winners from the virus. So I don't like that term. There are stocks that COVID is helping a lot, like those 4, and there are stocks which COVID is killing, like Macy's. But there are no winners. The grief and the suffering is enormous. Nevertheless, we watch that terrible shutdown in March, and we ask, when is the American economy coming back? And an hour from now, we will get some idea, and throughout the day, the repercussions of that idea will travel through, and then Donald Trump will talk about nothing else for the next 5 days, and the media will avoid it. He predicted a V-shaped recovery. It's a super V. That's what the indication appears to be. Now, this is also going to help the Republicans in the Senate. I told you the Trafalgar National Battleground poll has Biden up 4 over Trump, actually 3.2. Lindsey Graham's best poll is he's up 8 points in South Carolina. Susan Collins is down 4 in the latest Colby College poll in Maine, but they don't account for that crazy voting system they have there. Tom Tillis in North Carolina up 2. David Perdue's best number, he's up 5 in Georgia. Joni Ernst is up in Iowa. John James in Trafalgar is up 2.2. Cory Gardner's got ground to make up. He's coming up next hour. We'll talk to him. Martha McSally in Arizona is up 3. Steve Daines is up, according to the New York Times poll, in Montana. Jason Lewis is only down 1 in Minnesota. Get out and vote. Keep America, America.com. That is where you go to find out where to vote early in person in Georgia, Minnesota, Ohio, Michigan, and Arizona. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Go and find out what you need to know about early voting in person. KeepAmericaAmerica.com, and come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
President Trump was impeached by Democrats for, quote, withholding military aid to Ukraine until Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky opened an investigation into the Biden family for corruption. This was all conjecture by Democrats with no substantial proof at all whatsoever. It was all written by a bad screenplay writer, Adam Schiff. Nothing that they thought was there was actually there. This is after the Mohler investigation completely and totally backfired, and they were left with nothing. The whistleblower, Schmerella, came up with the transcript and said this is worthy of investigation. Vindman, all these guys came up and testified. Let's play cut 24. Remember when we had to read a fake call transcript because the real Trump call transcript was actually not a big deal? Play cut 24.
So you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it. On this and on that, I'm going to put you in touch with people, and not just any people. I'm going to put you in touch with Attorney General of the United States, my Attorney General, Bill Barr. He's got the whole weight of the American law enforcement behind him. And I'm going to put you in touch with Rudy. You're going to love him, trust me. You know what I'm asking, and so I'm only going to say this a few more times, in a few more ways.
Trump never said any of that.
Don't call me again. I'll call you when you've done what I asked.
It's enough of that guy. Trump never said any of that. It's as real as Pulp Fiction, okay? It might as well be a Quentin Tarantino film.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short case for backing the Trump-Pence ticket and voting for Republican senators and representatives in your state. On the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has done as well as any president could have done, and certainly better than Joe Biden. You're safer and more secure because of the Trump military buildup. The president has made the necessary pivot with China, and he's brokered the first major peace deal in the Middle East in 25 years. On the economy, Trump and the GOP succeeded in bringing unemployment to all-time lows early this year. Now, even amidst the pandemic, the economy is bouncing back. Your First and Second Amendment freedoms are much stronger as well because Trump has bolstered the Supreme Court and federal courts with strong judges who honor the Constitution. Whatever you think of Trump personally, there's no question. His policies have been good for the country. Join me in voting for a second Trump term. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
There are more black Latin players playing in the major leagues than American-born black players. Something that was told to Mookie Betts following a victory, and Betts was unaware of it. The person speaking is a former baseball player named Harold Reynolds.
Well, Mook, you know, when you get to the World Series, everything's magnified. And one of the things that everybody's talking about across the country, you're the only African-American player in the World Series. So when did you learn that, and what are your thoughts when you think about that?
Now think about that. You know, you're the only African-American in the World Series. What did you find out about that? And what were your thoughts about that? What the hell kind of question is that? Is somebody putting a gun to the head of black people and telling them not to go into baseball? What is this, 1947? And Jackie Robinson had to come to the major leagues and endure racism? Or are people voluntarily deciding maybe they want to go to other sports? Is there any evidence whatsoever that somehow black people are being denied an opportunity to play baseball? There are all sorts of programs for baseball in the inner city. Programs have been going on for decades. For whatever reason, a lot of black boys do not like to play baseball. I don't know. So that's Mookie Betts' problem?
You're the only African American player in the World Series.
People are talking about that across the country. Really? Everybody in America talking about it across the country.
So when did you learn that, and what are your thoughts when you think about that?
Learned it just now.
Learned it just now. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. When did you learn? Learn it just now, bro.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So he's raising the question of how is it possible that this individual, Joe Biden, couldn't be blackmailed by the Chinese given everything that his son and the rest of the Biden clan were doing. And let me break some news here as well. I got a phone call yesterday morning from a 22-year veteran of the U.S. Navy who was asked to provide a reference for Hunter Biden when he was permitted to have a direct commission to the U.S. Navy Reserves. This individual refused, but he found out that this individual, Hunter Biden, when he was given a direct
Welcome back, America. Chuck Todd is my guest host of Meet the Press. Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right, brother. How are you?
Well, we're not going to sleep on election night, that's for sure. Chuck, I want to set up the premise and then have you respond and do it. The reason I think you get the biggest audience on Sunday is that center-right people watch Meet the Press because they will hear their point of view. Here's my point of view, and I'm just going to lay it out and allow you to respond. One, Hunter Biden is not a credible witness, nor are his emails credible because of his problem. Two, either Tony Bobulinski or Joe Biden is lying. Three, I think Bobulinski's motive is revenge. I think he got cut out of a financial deal, and he has a motive which would question his credibility, but we don't know. Four, he said he traveled the world with Jim Biden, which is easily fact-checked but hasn't been. Next, big tech has made a huge mistake, and it will lose its Section 230 coverage as a result. And then finally, big media may be making the same mistake that big tech did. What's Chuck Todd's view of this story?
We can't verify it. That's all. I mean, I'm a believer. You check a story out. We can't verify it. Rudy Giuliani's not credible. He's not provided the raw material that he claims, that the New York Post claims that they have looked at. So our issue is we've not been able to verify anything because everybody who holds first-hand information has not cooperated. Has not even. So it is. This is where I have some deep skepticism about the story, but I have deep skepticism more about the sourcing for it because it's clear to me they don't want more news outlets looking into this. If they wanted more news outlets looking into this, they'd have been more forthcoming with the information they have. So, that's been our problem. I can't sit here and tell you, I'm not going to judge the media's role in this when we've done the best we could do, which is it's unverified and we're not going to report unverified stuff. Pure and simple.
That is a great answer. I think it should be said more. I think maybe the one thing
I wish other news organizations did too, because we're not the only ones that I think that are struggling with this. I can just tell you our issue. That's all I can tell you.
And I would love to get Tony Bobulinski on because I could figure out if he was credible in 5 minutes, and if Jim Biden would give me 10, the story could go away. Why? Do you have a theory why the vice president doesn't answer the question?
I don't think, in fairness to you, I don't think he feels as if he owes anybody anything. He's sitting there going, he doesn't. Here's the thing. Nobody's proven to me that he's not telling the truth yet, because the burden of proof, I think, is on what Bobulinski and all these guys are doing. And what I'm telling you is we haven't. I can't. Again, I don't sit here and say, does somebody owe a response to a charge that isn't verified? And if you're in his shoes, now again, I don't know if it's true. Obviously, you'd sit there and say you should deal with this. You should confront it. But let's take the other side of this, where he's going, what the hell is this about? I have no idea what my brother and son do. One's 48 years old. One's in his 70s. I have no idea what they're doing. I'm not staying involved. Why do I owe an explanation, right? That is very possible one way he's looking at it. So that's the part of this, again, Hugh. I can't sit here and judge Biden's reaction because I'm still stuck in, I can't verify this.
That's very fair. I'm going to leave it there. Yeah. I think that every news organization should say the same thing, and it would make it a lot easier for center-right people to understand.
No, I agree. There's this perception that somehow we're all colluding, that's not reporting it. It's like, no, we all have standards, and it hasn't met them. I'm not saying that we won't eventually find some reason to report it, but we have yet to find anything relevant that we feel comfortable standing by. And again, the source material, we've asked, we've made requests, and let's just say, and I do think the biggest problem in this story is Rudy Giuliani and his credibility.
Interesting. All right, now I want to go to the politics. You told me last week that the rural vote was misread 4 years ago and you were doing better. This morning, John Ralston, who I think is probably the best state-specific political reporter in the country, at least the equal of any one of them, he wrote on his blog yesterday, quote, Republicans are up in the rurals by 30,000 ballots and nearly 28 percentage points with about half the vote in. Trump won rural Nevada by 58,000 votes in 2016. I have said it could be as much as 70,000 this cycle. I may have underestimated. He goes on to point out that Clark County has got great Democratic advantages too. Right. But the point is, I know you adjusted your rural vote numbers. Do you think you adjusted them enough?
Look, we'll find out. I mean, I said this to our affiliate. I did a whole call with our affiliates yesterday, and I said, look, we've been working for 4 years to make sure we don't let 2016, happen again, where we're unprepared and we don't see things. So, and I said our final exam is on Tuesday. So, I think so. That's all I can tell you is that we believe we've done this. We're doing more double checks, triple checks. For instance, most recently, the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, we actually set aside 200 people we had talked to in the last 4 months who either was undecided or said they could change their vote. And right after that last debate, we went the most recent debate, we went ahead and just called those voters again to see if there was any movement, any shift. And what we found is Trump's approval rating went up a little bit and Biden's favorable rating went up a little bit. So they both sort of weirdly benefited, but it didn't have any impact on the ballot test. The point I'm saying is, and I'm polling through Monday for the first time. We've never done that before for the election. The point is this. We are adding more safeguards. We are trying to triple check. We don't want to miss anything this time, because I do believe that both the two things were true in 2016. The polls were accurate and we misanalyzed. They weren't inaccurate. They were accurate and we misread.
Interesting.
And that is something that I'll go to my grave believing.
Now let me ask you about election night. 4 years ago I was with you. This year I'm doing Salem coverage, and I'm
virtual.
I'm virtual, right? But
there's no physical presence this year.
I just got asked by NBC would I be available from midnight to 4. I said, hell, of course. I'm not going to bed. But the point is, I don't think we're going to get. I don't even know how you can call states when North Carolina just successfully appealed to the Supreme Court to count ballots for 6 days. How can anything be called?
Here's what we think, okay? And I'll just say this on election night. We think there are 5 key states where we could get to 90 to 95% of the vote by 3 a.m. And they are Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Arizona. All of them are states that are allowed to process their early vote before Election Day, which speeds up the counting of the early vote and the absentees. Florida and North Carolina have been doing it longer than most, so they're really good at it. We're really confident we're going to get, again, and you're right. And here's the point. If they are 1-point races, we've talked about this internally. You think we're going to call Florida if it's a 1-point spread even at 97% reporting? You're effing out of your mind, right? We are going to be extraordinarily cautious this year. So my point is this. Those 4 states I just described, which I expect all of them to be decided by 3 points or less. Okay, Georgia, Ohio, North Carolina, Arizona, and Florida. And if they tip in one direction and we are able to call them, and 3 points is basically, I think, the smallest margin we're comfortable calling above 95%, approximately. Okay, so if you're looking at that, then you'll have an idea. But let's say those 5 states we still can't call with 95% reporting, which I think in 2 of them is very possible. North Carolina feels like it is just going to be, North Carolina looks like it's going to be this year's Florida. Right, where it's just going to be, just hundreds of ballots are going to decide the Senate race in this presidential. And so that I expect. And then if we're in that situation, well, then, then we got to wait a couple of days to see what the Pennsylvania count looks like, Wisconsin count. I mean, for what it's worth, your viewers will enjoy this. We have set up a 72-hour on-air schedule for ourselves.
Oh, my God.
And we'll rotate. We'll be like literally, all right, I'm going to take 3 hours off. All right, we're going to come back. If things are that uncalled.
Chuck, in 2000, when I first started the national show, I went to Hawaii the day after the election because in the old days, I always took the week off. I've been doing this since 1990. I always took the week off after election, 92, 94, 96, 98. It changed in 2000 because you can't take the week off anymore. But those were the good old days. All of these states that you name, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Arizona, Trump must win, except maybe Arizona. So it's
he can
possible.
Only afford to lose one. Yeah, he can only afford to lose one. It is one of those cases. If Biden has carried 2 by 3 a.m., while we can't call the presidency, people might have a good idea where it's gone.
Right, but are we going to avoid the Florida fiasco of 2000 where a network, it won't be NBC, but will any network below the firewall, are they all defensed?
I will say this. I'm not going to tell you which two, but there are 2 news organizations that are quite legitimate. I'm not sitting here, that are too aggressive, in my opinion, too aggressive on this stuff. And so I do fear there will be, one, and I'm not, again, and I say this is in the larger scale, not doing the network. But there are 2 news organizations I worry are too aggressive on this front, and I'm worried about them. And they could cause problems. And if it happens, one of them does it, and it causes problems, I'll tell you next week.
All right. Now, last question.
It was one of the networks.
This is asking you to be a prophet, but I personally believe that the most important October surprise will be transitioning from the oil industry. What do you think it is, if there is one?
I think we're in the middle of it. I think it's the virus. I think the fact that the virus is surging in the last week, you couldn't have come up with a worse final week of dealing with the virus for the president than a surging virus in the most important battleground state in the Midwest.
Chuck, do you think people?
That's what history will say.
Do you think people feel that? I don't get that from folks.
I don't know. I'll tell you this. We have heard plenty of anecdotal polling evidence that we know that partisan organizations. We've not polled this, but we've talked to 2 different ones who say the rallies are a net negative for the president. People think the rallies are unsafe.
I'm stunned by that, but I'm also open to being persuaded. A bonus question. Both candidates were in Nevada yesterday. Kamala Harris is doing a fine job as a vice presidential surrogate, as is Doug Emhoff. Both Harris and Trump were in Nevada. Are you surprised by that?
No. When the economy, there's a good saying about Nevada, right? When they're a classic case when the country gets cold, they get the flu on the economy. And so this is a place that when the economy's good, things can be great there, but the minute the economy turns south, things get bad quickly. So no, I think Nevada is always one of these states you have to be careful of in either party. Nevada is a sneaky, if you look at Nevada's hit streak in presidential elections, I think in the West, they're one of the most reliable predictors there has been going back to Kennedy. Just like Ohio is. We talk about Ohio as it's always been with the winner. Nevada, and I think it's because it is susceptible to the quick drop.
Well, I think we're going to engrave that in my studio.
It's a lot of swing voters.
Ohio has always been with the winner. Chuck Todd, we'll be watching on Sunday because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Thank you, friend. Follow him on Twitter at Chuck Todd. Also, just watch Meet the Press on Sunday. You'll get the latest and best, most cautious breakdown. That's very interesting. 3 a.m. at the earliest. Wow. 3 a.m. at the earliest. Let me remind you, relieffactor.com, it is pouring inside the Beltway. One of the reasons I did the long haul yesterday, a 10-miler, is because I knew the rain was coming. I knew it, and it rained all night long, and it's raining right now inside the Beltway, and I'm telling you, relieffactor.com means I woke up feeling fine. Support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains. You might do a 10, you might do a half marathon, you might do a marathon. There's a virtual marathon for some people this weekend. We're doing virtually what they would have otherwise been doing in New York or D.C. for the Marine Corps Marathon or Chicago, because October's marathon month. ReliefFactor.com for the runner in your life. ReliefFactor.com for the walker in your life. ReliefFactor.com for the gym rat in your life who's working it out. Or those people who finally got their Peloton. or their cheap Peloton, their Peloton knockoff, ReliefFactor.com. It just are the 4 supplements you need. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. Then come right back. We got lots more to do. Cory Gardner coming up on the Hugh Hewitt Show. And, of course, your calls. 1-800-520-1234. What do you think if you're a lawyer? 1-800-520-1234 of Biden Bobolinsky. Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Speaking to the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. So, in a nutshell, I mean, you said you were, the Proud Boys were essentially guys who get together and drink and cuss and et cetera, et cetera. But what do you stand for?
So what we simply stand for, it's very easy. We are a group that is very pro-family, and the way that we promote that is we want to make better men, right? Whether that means make better brothers, make better husbands, make better fathers. A statistic that I bring up is, mass shootings are horrible, right? And 23 of the past 26 mass shootings have something in common, and it's not what the Democrats have been preaching about, how they acquired a gun or background checks or anything. 23 of the past 26 mass shooters come from fatherless homes. It's a culture problem that you can't legislate your way out of. So what we do is we promote masculinity is what we do. We promote the family. So that's our main purpose. Now, we have members. We have across the world. We have 22,000 members, probably more now after Joe Biden's advertisement on the first debate. But we could stretch ourselves in many different directions. Whether it's on the legislative side, we have Proud Boys that are running for Congress. We have Proud Boys that are pastors. I'm currently right in front of the White House. We do things that typically you don't think conservatives do.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I am feeling pretty emotional today, but I understand that nothing matters. None of the speculation, the analysis matters. You know what matters? Your decision to go vote and save this country. I don't like using overheated rhetoric, but it's all on the line right now. It's on the line as you vote. And if you voted for a political party that fails to condemn the decision to loot stores, to steal from stores because a man
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Donald Trump in Goodyear, Arizona yesterday. I have not brought up this enough. The anonymous story that transfixed the media. It's a hoax. The New York Times built Anonymous up till you thought it was a cabinet secretary or a senior staffer in the White House. It's a nobody who at the time he wrote Anonymous was a staffer, a policy advisor at DHS. It is simply a massive fail. And President Trump was not letting it go yesterday. Cut number 11. Cut number 11.
But I'm not to show you how corrupt the Washington media is. I was just, and did you say this? This was just revealed. It was just revealed that, Anonymous, this Anonymous that everybody's been looking for, that law enforcement could have found early if they wanted to, but everybody was looking for Anonymous. Turned out to be a low-level staffer, a sleazebag, who's never worked in the White House. Anonymous was a nobody, a disgruntled employee who was quickly removed from his job a long time ago for, they tell me, incompetence. I don't know what for, but they tell me incompetence. You know where he works now? He works at CNN. Can you believe it? Works at CNN. He wrote a phony book. Was just basically, if you heard about Anonymous, it was like somebody that was right next to me. I thought it might have been Hope Hicks, who's right. I thought it might have been Jared. I thought it might have been Mike Lee. I was worried, from the great state of Utah. I was extremely worried about Rand Paul. Maybe it was Rand. This guy's a low-level lowlife that I don't know. I have no idea who he is, other than I got to see him a little while ago on television, and I think they threw him out a long time ago. His phony book was just based on fake articles and left-wing outlets. He worked with listen to this, the fake news New York Times, right? And he's an employee of Google. He works for Google. Isn't that nice? Google. The people that you guys are looking at right now. The whole thing was just one more giant hoax from the Washington swamp and a corrupt special interest group. I'll tell you what, this guy, in my opinion, he should be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted.
Well, I know he hurt people. He hurt people. People suffered because of the suspicion that they were, same thing happened with Deep Throat years ago. Turned out to be a nobody on the suspect list, Mark Felt. And this was just a giant fake by the New York Times. Now, Joe Biden had a, quote, press conference yesterday. Let's play the whole thing. Cut 14.
Shooting in Philadelphia, what do you say to Philadelphia residents that are outraged by yet another unarmed black man being shot by police?
What I say is that there is no excuse whatsoever for the looting and the violence. None whatsoever. I think to be able to protest is totally legitimate, is totally reasonable, but I think that the looting is just, as the victim's father said, do not do this. It's not what my son, you're not helping, you're hurting, you're not helping my son. And there are certain things we're going to have to do as we move along, and I know the local folks in Philadelphia are thinking about it as well, and that is how we deal with, how do you diminish the prospect of lethal shooting in circumstances like the one we saw. That's going to be part of the commission I set up to determine how we deal with these changes, but there's no excuse for the looting.
On your healthcare plan, do you have a bill ready to drop, and what did you learn from the ACA passage that's going to guide how you work on the improvements to the ACA, particularly whether you're going to work with Republicans?
Yes, on both counts. Yes, I have a bill ready, number one. Number two, yes, I will work with Republicans. And yes, I do have a proposal that relates to how we can improve the Affordable Care Act beyond what it was before, which Barack and I wanted to do at the time, to add a public option, allowing people to keep their private insurance, if that's what they choose they want to do, making it more affordable to get a better plan, and in terms of a gold plan, about all the different plans, you can make it more affordable, subsidizing it more, and fundamentally changing the way in which the cost of medication is. We're going to lower it by a significant amount, and I believe we can get help from Republicans as well.
Why?
Well, why? Because I think they're seeing the reaction of the American people. Overwhelmingly, the American people think drug prices are too high. Even the president, he continued to lie about it, even the president acknowledged early on that he thought Medicare should be able to negotiate drug prices and lower prices overall. He hadn't done it, he doesn't mean it. But there's a lot of Republicans that do mean it. So I'm confident we can get it done. But thank you all.
Nobody asked him, have you ever met with Tony Bobulinski? Yeah, I mean, nobody asked him. It's a simple question. Have you ever met with Tony Bobulinski? The failure of the traveling press. Please don't fail Alliance Defending Freedom over at HughHewitt.com. I've got 2 days left. where I'm asking you to support the people who will defend you if your religious liberty is challenged, who will defend your kids if they're in college, who will defend your friends in your church if they're shuttered. Alliance Defending Freedom has been doing this for 30 years, but they need people like you to go to HughHewitt.com, to the very top, find the banner that says Alliance Defending Freedom, and make your best gift. $100, $1,000, whatever you can at Alliance Defending Freedom banner, or you can simply call as well. I'll give you the number next hour. Go to HughHewitt.com. It's 866-359-9644. 866-359-9644.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
To say that when you say that your son's laptop, which now we know, we have various levels of proof and evidence that it is the laptop, that the emails are real. At this point, in other words, last night, to say it's Russian disinformation, it is just a level of desperation for him to say this that I have to say, doesn't it just admit he has no answer, there can be no answer, and he is going to stick to this lie, cynically believing enough Americans will believe it to vote for him, and he doesn't have to answer the question because the media will not press him on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Eric. And isn't it shocking that a presidential candidate will stand there and say that instead of saying the truth, taking responsibility, and actually answering the question directly? And even if he wants to excuse away fact or try to put some kind of, context that couches it a little bit better, but just to blatantly, flat out lie. And it's a knowing lie. It's something that is just so shocking. And you see, and I think that where you went to the media is absolutely part of the problem here, because the media refuses to hold Joe Biden accountable. They are complicit in this because he is, of course, their preferred candidate. They are trying so hard, the media and big tech, to push Joe Biden over the line because they are all in this together and they want globalism. That's really the goal here, is that they want to obfuscate American sovereignty. They don't want your and my rights, individual rights, to be protected.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. President Trump is referring to the widely shared clip of Joe Biden threatening to fire a prosecutor because they were looking into his son's business dealings. Play cut 25.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
And throughout the entire impeachment investigation process, Americans found that Hunter Biden was working for the Burisma, Ukrainian energy company Burisma, for $83,000 a month. Now, Americans know that he had no experience in that sector at all whatsoever. So that was where we stopped the story. But Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley last month released a Senate report investigating the money flows from foreign governments to Hunter Biden. So here's where Hunter Biden makes his money, and with it, Joe Biden. A $3.5 million wire from the mayor of Moscow's wife, a $100,000 spending account with a Chinese businessman, $1.4 million from his time on the board of Burisma, and $4.7 million in consulting fees from a Chinese Communist Party-linked company, and a $5 million forgivable unsecured loan not reported to the IRS from the Chinese Communist Party. And this was largely ignored from the activist media. But then Hunter Biden gave us a gift. He gave us his laptop. He said, please, take it. I don't want my dad to be president. Please.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
In this case, the Philadelphia police had body cams. In this case, the body cams apparently have been activated, although they have not been released, but other footage has been shown, apparently people filming what happened. Now, the shooting has sparked protests, some violent, some 30 Philadelphia police officers injured yesterday, some gone to the hospital, some looting has taken place. Apparently, the cop or cops involved were white, although it's difficult to tell from looking at the footage. And as I mentioned, the suspect, 27-year-old black man, has been killed. May I ask you a few questions here? Those of you who are out in the streets in Philadelphia, Philadelphia carries our show. We get a lot of calls from Philadelphia, so Phillies, please, Phil, give us a call, 888-971-SAGE, if there's anything you want to add to what I'm about ready to say, or correct what I'm about ready to say. Did I mention the man had a knife? Did I mention that the police asked him to drop the knife, told him to drop the knife several times? He doesn't drop the knife. The man's mom, by the way, is at the scene. She's trying to discourage him from charging towards the police. He charges towards the police anyway. One relative says, how come they couldn't shoot him in the leg? You shoot to stop the threat.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is so shocking, and this is what the questions have to be asked to Ray and the CIA, it's obviously an open known fact. It's openly known in China that the Bidens were open for business. They were open to be in business with the Chinese Communist Party, and that Hunter had problems not just with drugs, he had problems with sex. I mean, the thing on this hard drive that's so shocking is really the depravity. The open drug use and really crack cocaine, which, as you know, his father wrote the law that really puts, essentially African-American men who don't use the high-end drug of cocaine, which is the drug of the elite, but use crack, it would put him in jail for much, much longer. His son is open about this. His son's been open about using this throughout the world and clearly has a drug problem and also has a sex problem. I mean, this thing, he's recording all this stuff. He's keeping it on the internet. He's very proud of this. Those are access points for foreign intelligence services to get you, capture you, blackmail you. And so the Biden family, through financial corruption, through being exposed financially, to basically taking all of the financing money from the Chinese Communist Party, have essentially made themselves open to capture by the Chinese Communist Party. And that's what happened. I think now people have to go back and ask tough questions. What was the relationship they had prior to Joe Biden negotiating in the pivot to Asia, the deal that the United States signed in the Rose Garden with President Xi and President Obama on cybersecurity, on militarization of South China Sea? It's legendary how bad that deal was. It's legendary how bad it failed. It's legendary how President Trump had to come and made it a campaign issue that I will tell you pierced the blue wall. The blue wall, we pierced the blue wall not on immigration in the wall at the southern border. It was important. We pierced the blue wall of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and almost Michigan because of manufacturing jobs and trade with China. That's how.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. I have never willingly brought up on this radio show the 1986 AFC Championship game played on January 11th at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, 1987, because every time I go to the Broncos game in Colorado, they play the most miserable 5 minutes and 2 seconds of my life when John Elway led his team 98 yards in 15 plays in the greatest comeback in NFL history. I bring up the drive, even though it hurts, because Cory Gardner is the great senator from the great state of Colorado. He's behind, but he's about doing his own drive right now. Hey, Cory, welcome back to the program, Senator.
Hey, thank you, Hugh, and thanks for reminding me of great times in Colorado.
Just because I bring it up don't mean you don't have to twist the knife. Look, you are said to be behind in polls. How are you campaigning through the tape?
Well, look, we are all over the state. Yesterday, I was down in Colorado Springs meeting with the veterans, meeting with community leaders. Today, we're going to be all over the state virtually, Zoom meetings, get out the vote rallies. We were on the Front Range yesterday. And look, this is reminding me of a song from Les Miserables, a little twist on that. It's 5 days more, 1 day more, 5 days more. We got to work hard to make sure we get every vote in.
Now, John Ralston covers Nevada like nobody's business. He reports in Nevada that Republicans are up in the rural votes by 30,000 ballots and 28 percentage points over this point in the vote in 2016. He thought that the Republicans might get more than 70,000 votes this cycle, and he just, quote, I may have underestimated it. Do you see the same thing in Colorado, Senator Gardner, that the rural and near rural vote is overperforming?
Well, it makes sense in 2020, and here's why. In 2014, I got more votes out of rural Colorado than any other Republican had. And in 2016, the president did better. Donald Trump did better than I did. And that makes sense. And it makes sense, too, because the agenda that Joe Biden and John Hickenlooper are talking about would devastate and destroy agriculture, oil and gas, resource development, the things that rural Colorado needs, rural America needs to survive. They are dead set against.
Later this morning, we're going to get a GDP number. The whisper from the Wall Street Journal is it's going to be huge. Will that make an impact on Coloradans?
I think it absolutely will. Look, people are wanting to know that tomorrow is going to be better than today. They've been through hell the last 6 months, and they're going to see that improve as we have every single step of the way, and we have to continue. And they know that we can get through this together. We've seen job numbers increase in Colorado. We've seen businesses reopen in Colorado. Now you have a push to start shutting things down again. You have John Hickenlooper, who would actually have already closed the Colorado economy down based on the things that he said he would do when testing reached a certain level. But I think Coloradans are also aware that John Hickenlooper and his plan to destroy 230,000 jobs in Colorado is not a way to jumpstart an economy and bring it back to life.
Senator Gardner, when you heard the last debate and Joe Biden said he would transition from the oil industry, I just told Chuck Todd I think that's going to be the most memorable thing. Chuck said, no, it'll be COVID. I think it's transitioning from the oil industry. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. Look, I think the people of this country understand, and in Colorado they understand very clearly how many millions of people are involved in energy. Just a year or two ago, Colorado voters were asked whether they wanted to ban oil and gas. That's what John Hickenlooper wants to do. The people of Colorado overwhelmingly rejected that plan because they understand the importance of jobs and our economy, the $31 billion part of our GDP just in the state alone, what oil and gas means. They don't want to see 230,000 families out of work and on the streets. That's the Hickenlooper-Biden plan, and I think people see through it.
Now, Senator Gardner, I want to compliment you on yesterday's questioning of Jack Dorsey of Twitter. I am personally of the opinion that Section 230 protection ought to be revoked, if not entirely, then partially, because of allowing the Ayatollah Khamenei to be an anti-Semitic, Holocaust-denying, mass murder-inciting fanatic who is unpatrolled by Jack Dorsey. Were you satisfied with Mr. Dorsey's responses to you?
Oh, absolutely not. Look, the Ayatollah Khomeini was tweeting and mocking and trolling Twitter in the middle of the hearing. You could see it. This is incredible that we would see conservative speech be censored, but yet somebody who denies that millions of people were slaughtered in the Holocaust by a nation that is still actively trying to wipe out Israel, just let it go, because that's not misinformation that qualifies under the Twitter standards of labeling. They're more likely to label, Joe Biden saying George Lopez is what he was talking about instead of George Bush.
So what did you take away from that here? And your colleagues across the aisle, do they share this concern?
You know, it's hard to tell what they share because yesterday they were defending big tech and it was a political sham and illegitimate. Everything that they don't like seems to be illegitimate and a sham. They're going to have to come up with some new words, I think, to use. So I hope that they, in my private conversations with them, they absolutely are concerned. They're concerned about privacy. I'm concerned about privacy. They're concerned about power and monopolies in these social media platforms. That's not what you heard yesterday because to them it's all about election.
Now, I want to close, Senator Gardner, by talking about the Great American Outdoors Act. I wrote in the Washington Post this week that I hope the new court, which includes Justice Barrett, who you voted for this week, will resurrect the Fifth Amendment's prohibition on takings without compensation. The Great American Outdoors Act is intended to help in that regard. Would you explain to people what the problem is and why your law is going to address it?
That's exactly right. The Great American Outdoors Act has been described as the holy grail of conservation bills by the Nature Conservancy. It's the biggest conservation accomplishment since Teddy Roosevelt, really. And it provides funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is dollars that can be used for willing sellers, and they cannot, offer outrageous sums of money to convince or bribe somebody to sell a piece of property. They have to follow the market. There's a formula that prevents them from putting a deal that's too good to be true on the table. So it's making sure that we're protecting private property rights, making sure that we're not creating an unfair marketplace, but also doing so in a way that will help avoid the takings of lands that flies in the face of that Fifth Amendment you just talked about.
It's the way around the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Water Act's enormous burdens on individual landowners. They are both well-intentioned laws. They've had the consequence of destroying the livelihoods of farmers, ranchers, landowners, developers, home builders. You know it better. You've got your own crazy species set in Colorado. You know this, but the way out is to buy the land that's impacted.
That's right. And buy the land from willing sellers, not use any overt pressure or too much government power. This is about a willing seller opportunity, and this is paid for through no cost to the taxpayer. It's using offshore oil and gas revenues, although Joe Biden and John Hickenlooper want to destroy that. So, in essence, they want to destroy the Great American Outdoors Act as well.
So, Senator Gardner, what is your closing message to Colorado voters who are listening right now?
If you haven't voted, get out and vote. Get out and vote for Cory Gardner. Turn them into a drop box as soon as you can. We need those votes in. We're going to fight hard for every part of this state, not just the liberal parts, not just the blue parts, but make sure that all four corners of Colorado have a fighter and a doer, somebody who believes in solutions for this great state.
Senator Gardner, run through the tape. I know you will. Thank you for joining me. He is a great, great senator. I think that almost everyone in the Senate thinks Cory Gardner is among the most effective senators in the United States. And I hope Colorado knows that. John Hickenlooper is a Chuck Schumer puppet. That's it. I mean, he's a nice guy. Everybody says John Hickenlooper's a nice guy. I've never met him. I just think he's just a reliable vote for Chuck Schumer, and the Senate needs to stay Republican. Needs to work with Donald Trump and confirm his judges when the president wins re-election. If he doesn't, it needs to be there as a bulwark against Joe Biden's crazy plans, and Cory Gardner is the key. Let me tell you right now, let me run down. We just talked with Cory. Lindsey Graham is up 8. Susan Collins a little bit behind in the Colby College poll, but I believe that their funky voting thing up there, they have second chance voting, which is if your candidate doesn't come in the top 2, you get your second choice. I think that's it. I don't understand what's going on in Maine, but I do believe in Susan Collins being, as you said about Cory Gardner, very effective. Susan Collins is the most influential senator in the United States because she's right in the middle of the Senate. Literally, the most influential senator in the United States is Susan Collins. And I think Maine knows that, and they know how much the state has benefited from having a voice like Susan Collins in the Senate. Tom Tillis is up 2 in North Carolina, where the rural vote is surging. David Purdue, WSB TV poll, up 5. Joni Ernst ahead in Iowa. John James in the most recent Trafalgar poll, up 2.2. And Donald Trump leading in Michigan as well. Get out and vote Detroit. Get out and vote Upper Peninsula. Get out and vote Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids. Martha McSally in the latest Susquehanna poll, up 3. Steve Taines is even ahead in the New York Times poll in Montana. Jason Lewis is 1 behind in the Survey USA poll a week ago. Come on, Minnesota, turnout. John Cornyn is running away with it in Texas. Mitch McConnell is running away with it in Kentucky. Dr. Marshall is running away with it in Kansas. But Tom Cotton is underperforming. He's only up 55 points in Arkansas. I'm really kind of disappointed by that. I'm coming right back, America. Remember, keepamericaamerica.com is where you learn how to get your early vote in. In Michigan, Ohio, Minnesota, Arizona, North Carolina, go to keepamericaamerica.com. Find out where to vote early in person and do a little, do a lot, but do something. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show. This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short case for backing the Trump-Pence ticket and voting for Republican senators and representatives in your state. On the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has done as well as any president could have done, and certainly better than Joe Biden. You're safer and more secure because of the Trump military buildup. The president has made the necessary pivot with China, and he's brokered the first major peace deal in the Middle East in 25 years. On the economy, Trump and the GOP succeeded in bringing unemployment to all-time lows early this year. Now, even amidst the pandemic, the economy is bouncing back. Your First and Second Amendment freedoms are much stronger as well because Trump has bolstered the Supreme Court and federal courts with strong judges who honor the Constitution. Whatever you think of Trump personally, there's no question. His policies have been good for the country. Join me in voting for a second Trump term. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
And I believe that many of you are as troubled as I am about the ability of mobs to do massive harm, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. This is a new America. If you were asked, make America great again, what does that mean? Well, one of the things it means is that if you steal, if you break into stores, if you set police cars on fire, and do similarly violent acts, you are arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. That's a better America. A country that allows thugs in the name of whatever they claim. Thugs to steal, burn, loot. Steal and loot are synonymous, so steal and burn will not survive as a society. There are a lot of bad people in this world. The amount of bad done in the last 100 years in the name of high ideals is greater than the amount of bad done in this world in the name of bad ideals. I think you ought to be aware of that. That's why I take actions as far more serious than rhetoric.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Want to take you to two states, South Carolina and Kentucky. You know what Democrats are doing there? In Senate races featuring Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. You know, I guess if you can't win on your own merits, you pull crap like this. A big Democratic political action committee is spending thousands and thousands of dollars promoting Constitution candidate Bill Bledsoe in South Carolina. They're calling him in the ads, and they're apparently saturating the airwaves right now. He's the only constitutional, true conservative, rather, on the ballot. Only problem is he dropped out in early October. He's not running anymore. And he endorsed Lindsey Graham. But because he's technically going to still be on the ballot, the Democrats now are trying to fool South Carolinians into believing that there is a more conservative alternative to Lindsey Graham. Because they're trying to get Jamie Harrison, the liberal Democrat, elected. That's all they're doing. They're doing the exact same thing in Kentucky. They're trying to siphon off votes from Mitch McConnell. A liberal super PAC is spending thousands of dollars pushing a libertarian named Brad Barron. The ad calls Barron a better choice for U.S. Senate who believes in freedom.
Welcome back, America. Cory Gardner letting Colorado know he is running through the tape. He's going to pull an Elway off. That makes me happy. I want you to know you got to get out and vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Lindsey Graham needs your vote in South Carolina to crush the idea that there is a Democratic Party there. Susan Collins is coming back in Maine. She had a great debate performance last night, crushed it. David Purdue is up by 5 in Georgia with the WSB TV poll, and he had a great debate last night. John Ossoff, I mean, the guy is taking money from China, from a film company that's a Chinese Communist Party funded film company. David Purdue is going to win there. John James up in the Trafalgar poll. I have no idea why Michigan is doing better for Trump and James than Wisconsin appears to be doing. That's a reverse of last time. It is this safety issue, the security issue, I think. Joni Ernst up in Iowa. Martha McSally up in the Susquehanna poll, 3 points in Arizona. Steve Daines running away with it in Montana. Jason Lewis is not ahead, but he's down by 1 in the Survey USA poll in Minnesota. Get out there and vote. Don't even Tina Smith. Jason Lewis would be a great addition to the United States Senate. John Cornyn running away with it in Texas. Mitch McConnell running away with it in Texas. Dr. Marshall is not going to lose Kansas. I mean, all this nonsense propaganda from the left. They're flooding social media with an attempt to suppress the vote by not illegal means, but just by demoralizing Republicans. Don't be. That John Ralston number out of Nevada is all I need to go through the weekend. The rural vote is extraordinary. People like the rally point. I look for statistical indices like John Ralston. Rural Nevada voting in numbers it has never voted in before. That's a Trump vote. That's the American heartland standing up and saying, we will be counted and we will be heard. I need you to stand up for Alliance Defending Freedom. Alliance Defending Freedom is out there every day protecting you and your religious liberty, protecting your family, your churches, your businesses. They do it for free. They do it every day. And they do it because of people like you giving them $100 or your best gift. Just go over to HughHewitt.com. The banner is at the very top. I got 3 days left to do this, today, tomorrow, and Monday. Alliance Defending Freedom. I do it when we have the biggest audience. Every 4 years. This is the biggest audience right now, today. And I need the new listeners to go to ADF and the banners at HughHewitt.com. Or if you know what they already do, and they're the world's greatest legal defense fund, you can call 866-359-9644. 866-359-9644. We will get later in the morning the gross domestic product for the third quarter. And that's probably going to be huge. And it's probably going to make borrowing money a little bit more expensive. But right now it's at historic lows, which is why you need to call andrewandtodd.com today. Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, great sponsors of this program. I tell you about them every day because they do the story of the day, the financial story of the day. They sponsor it. You can call them at 888-888-1172. I've known Andrew for 20 plus years in a Bible study with him. Great Christian man. Todd Avakian, his partner, great Christian man, great team, wonderful people. They take care of you. They lend you the money. And what I keep urging you every day, if you're a new listener in one of my new markets, I'm up over 400 markets now. Make sure you take advantage of this unique window because of the terrible suffering of the pandemic and people going inside. Interest rates have plummeted. And when they're low, you can buy a house that you could never have bought before, and you can help your son or daughter buy a house. That's why housing has come back so strong. We're going to see that in the fourth quarter GDP. But you got to get started. You got to go to andrewandtodd.com. andrewandtodd.com. Let me remind you again, Lindsey Graham needs your vote in South Carolina. He's up by 8. I'd love him to win by 18. You got to turn out the vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com will tell you where and how to do early voting in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona. Tom Tillis is up in North Carolina. David Purdue is up in Georgia. Joni Ernst needs your votes in Iowa, though she's ahead. John James is upset, the upset special of the year in Michigan. He needs your vote. Martha McSally, fighter pilot, needs it in Arizona. Get out and vote early. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Come right back, America. I'm joined by Al Mohler, Dr. Albert Mohler, next on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
To say that when you say that your son's laptop, which now we know, we have various levels of proof and evidence that it is the laptop, that the emails are real. At this point, in other words, last night, to say it's Russian disinformation, it is just a level of desperation for him to say this that I have to say, doesn't it just admit he has no answer, there can be no answer, and he is going to stick to this lie, cynically believing enough Americans will believe it to vote for him, and he doesn't have to answer the question because the media will not press him on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Eric. And isn't it shocking that a presidential candidate will stand there and say that instead of saying the truth, taking responsibility, and actually answering the question directly? And even if he wants to excuse away fact or try to put some kind of, context that couches it a little bit better, but just to blatantly, flat out lie. And it's a knowing lie. It's something that is just so shocking. And you see, and I think that where you went to the media is absolutely part of the problem here, because the media refuses to hold Joe Biden accountable. They are complicit in this because he is, of course, their preferred candidate. They are trying so hard, the media and big tech, to push Joe Biden over the line because they are all in this together and they want globalism. That's really the goal here, is that they want to obfuscate American sovereignty. They don't want your and my rights, individual rights, to be protected.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. President Trump is referring to the widely shared clip of Joe Biden threatening to fire a prosecutor because they were looking into his son's business dealings. Play cut 25.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
And throughout the entire impeachment investigation process, Americans found that Hunter Biden was working for the Burisma, Ukrainian energy company Burisma for $83,000 a month. Now, Americans know that he had no experience in that sector at all whatsoever. So that was where we stopped the story. But Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley last month released a Senate report investigating the money flows from foreign governments to Hunter Biden. So here's where Hunter Biden makes his money, and with it, Joe Biden. A $3.5 million wire from the mayor of Moscow's wife, a $100,000 spending account with a Chinese businessman, $1.4 million from his time on the board of Burisma, and $4.7 million in consulting fees from a Chinese Communist Party-linked company, and a $5 million forgivable unsecured loan not reported to the IRS from the Chinese Communist Party. And this was largely ignored from the activist media. But then Hunter Biden gave us a gift. He gave us his laptop. He said, please, take it. I don't want my dad to be president. Please.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Inside the Beltway, joined by my long and dear friend, Dr. Albert Mohler.
Like we got to go live right now.
Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. He's also the author of a brand new book, The Gathering Storm, Secularism, Culture, and the Church. Now, I don't blurb a lot of books because to blurb a book, in all honesty, you've got to have read it. You've got to know what's in it. So when I blurb on the back of The Gathering Storm, be worried, be very worried, but don't be paralyzed. Read, think, pray. Start with this book and with everything Al Mohler has to say. I'm very serious about wanting you to go out and pick up The Gathering Storm, if you are a Christian. Now, a lot of it will not make sense to you if you're not. And there are better books by Al Mohler if you're a non-believer, like the Apostles' Creed. And there are things you can do with Al Mohler, like listen to his daily podcast, The Briefing, and Thinking in Public. There are many, many ways to drink deep at Al Mohler's well. And we're going to bring you him shortly via Skype. I think we're having a little trouble connecting. But in The Gathering Storm, he just paints what is a pretty grim picture. Now, I've got a very well-thumbed, annotated copy here, and I'm waiting to go over it with him. But the bottom line is the trends in the culture, not the political. It isn't about the election next Tuesday. These are about the trends in the culture. And The Gathering Storm lays it all out and lays down specifically 3 challenges for Christian parents, which I want to read to you while we wait for Al. Very, very specific challenges to Christian parents. And I want you to first, Christian parents must view church as the highest and utmost priority for their family's weekly schedule. And that's going to be jarring to some people. They don't do that. They go, they take their children, they sometimes take a week off to go to a soccer match or whatever. They think of church as necessary, but not their highest priority. And Dr. Mohler says it's got to be your highest and utmost priority. Second, and this is gospel to me, Christian parents need to be serious about the effects of technology, screen time, and social media. And I just believe that in my heart to be true. Finally, Christian parents must endeavor to fill their homes with the fragrance of the gospel. Now, those occur on pages 140 to 141, but they're the lead. All right, so if you have young children in your home, you've got teenagers in your home, maybe you haven't done this yet. Don't guilt yourself. Just change yourself. Al writes, fear can paralyze even the most courageous and convictional person out there. He's right. But what Dr. Mohler also just lays out specifically, it's hard not to respond to the specific challenge to view church as the highest and utmost priority for your family's weekly schedule. I just wonder if anyone out there actually does that. The clergy clearly do because they got to be there. But growing up, it was not an option. We were going to Mass, and my dad was going to First Presbyterian Church of Warren, Ohio. And it was just it. There was a routine. It was Sunday morning, and it happened. And we raised our 3 children the same way. They're out of the house now. They are themselves churchgoers, but we did it the same way. But it wasn't, I don't even think I can honestly say it was our highest and utmost priority. But then again, the culture when my kids were young wasn't the same kind of culture. I'm joined now by Dr. Mohler. Good morning, Al. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. I'm doing great. Good to talk with you.
You're in the greatest private book collection in America. I've been there. I smoked a cigar in my cigar smoking days with you. Has it grown?
It grows all the time, I must tell you.
Yeah. One day I'm going to read a book that Al Mohler hasn't read, and I'm going to be happy. Dr. Mohler, I was reading while we waited for you from this, what I thought was the takeaway. I didn't want to bury the lead. Your 3 admonitions to Christian parents. They must view church as the highest and most urgent priority in these times. They got to be serious about technology. They have to fill their home with the fragrance of the gospel. Is that the most important part of this book?
You know, when it comes right down to what Christian parents have to do in raising children, that has to be the most important part of the book, I think, because given the cultural challenges we face, if we don't retain our own children, then everything else is lost. So, yes, I would say that comes down to the most important part of the book.
And I just went through while we were waiting for you. All of our kids went to church every Sunday with us, as I did growing up. But it was never the most urgent and highest priority because it was a Christian culture and they would get it from school. We did it, but we didn't think of it in those terms. You're really drawing a line underneath this and saying you have got to do this. It's your last defense.
That's right. You know, we are now in the midst of what I know you'll remember Paul Hollander called the adversary culture. And Christian families and Christian churches are the last bulwarks against an encroaching, secularizing culture that will be increasingly hostile. I mean, right down to issues of the most basic way your children will live. And if we don't live biblically, and if we don't live according to Christian principles, we can't possibly believe that our children will do so.
No, Al, there is in the culture, there is in a human history a cycle. And I always describe it as stability, followed by crisis, followed by revolution, counter-revolution, restoration, reform, and stability. It's a very, very well-documented cycle. I think we're in the counter-revolution politically, but I think we're in the crisis culturally. How do you view us where we are?
Well, I like your layout there. I'll simply say it remains to be seen to me if this is actually a counter-revolution or this is just some kind of skirmish that will not last long. Unfortunately, conservatives just don't control much of the cultural production at all. That's why I'm so thankful that you do what you do, and that's why I'm as active in output as I am. But we don't get to control Hollywood, the mass media, the blob, as some might call it. And so in that sense, I'm not sure how much of a counter-revolution it is. I hope it is.
Now,
but when it comes to...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but when it comes to Christians in the United States and in much of the West, we've got to move into that mode of being resistance, happy, joyful in Christ, but a resistance to this culture.
You began the book. I was very cheered to see you quoting Dominion. I've had Tom Holland on this show. I then read everything else he'd written. I think Tom Holland is in a transition to becoming an acknowledged Christian. Yeah. But we're living on the fumes of 2,000 years of Christianity right now. So without a restoration of the church, there isn't going to be new fuel in the tank. Correct?
No, absolutely. The cultural deposit that made this civilization possible is historic biblical Christianity. And once that's been evacuated, we've been, I think you said living off the fumes. We're living off a dissipating inheritance, and there isn't any other cultural capital to pour into this. There's nothing else to help sustain human dignity, the sanctity of human life. The reality of human rights is something other than merely procedural and positive. The Christian worldview tells us that these things are so because God has made them so. that's a much different anchor than saying, for now, Congress and the Supreme Court say they're so.
You actually say on page 186, God, truth, liberty. That's the bottom line. You've got to make truth claims about God and about freedom, or you cannot stand on the position that you hold. The culture punishes people who do that, Dr. Mohler.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, no one else can actually explain any kind of foundational basis for human rights. We believe that human beings have rights. Well, why? Well, even in the Declaration of Independence, it spoke of our Creator endowing us with certain unalienable rights. If there isn't a Creator and some objective ground of those rights, then where do they come from? The European Court of Human Justice? The U.S. Congress? You just go down the list. I hope not the history department at Yale. If there's not a transcendent ground for these values, then they're going to disappear pretty quickly.
Now, Dr. Mohler, let's talk about the most troubling part of the gathering storm. It's your picture of the millennials and the post-millennials. And 54 to 39%, they hate conservatives. They hate Republicans. Now, I looked at that and I said, I'm a glass half full guy. Oh, we have to change 14% of them and then we'll be even again. But the millennials are wearing down under an accumulated burden of their past, as you describe it on social media. Would you explain that problem? Because I don't think people think about it until you put it so perfectly in the gathering storm.
Well, thank you, Hugh. Every generation inherits from the generation before it. And what the Generation Z and the millennials inherited was kind of an exhausted cultural and moral argument. And they've grown up in a context in which the thou shalls and the thou shalt nots have been created by artificial entities such as Hollywood and again this adversary culture. And so for many of them, any specific Christian truth claim or even resistance claim, concerning sexuality or gender, it's as if the culture then parks a bus right on their foot. And they just feel crushed all the time. And, just imagine an 18-year-old showing up on a major college or university campus, moving in the dorm, and immediately people try to figure out, are you cool or not? And anyone resisting this massive cultural transformation isn't cool. It's very hard not to be cool.
Let me ask you in our last question, Dr. Mohler, about the gathering storm. The best bit of news. I want you to tell me the best thing, the most encouraging thing you know. I think it's the growth of Hillsdale, of Boyce College, of Colorado Christian University. I think that's the best news. What do you think is the best news?
Let me just say a hearty affirmation to that. I appreciate you mentioning Boyce College. It is an extremely happy thing. You mentioned Hillsdale and Colorado Christian. I know and have been on all those campuses. That's a very happy thing. Let me tell you one very happy thing behind it, and this will make you happy. Conservatives are having babies, and out the rest of the world, out babying the rest of the world. I recalled I was reading Rick Atkinson's first volume on the American Revolution, and it was just reminded and couldn't help smiling when I heard Benjamin Franklin say back to the British, "We have quite a manufacture of men." We're producing babies, and so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's very much like Jeremiah in the Old Testament. What do you do when there's a challenge? You have babies, and you raise them in Christian love, in the Christian family, in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And your resistance culture is probably right now screaming in a crib.
Yeah, Rod Dreher said family is the most important thing in times when the curtain comes down. The gathering storm makes the same point.
Right.
Has it been heard by churches and by pastors and by the community of faith?
Yeah, Hugh, I'll say I think it's been heard because there's been kind of a desperation to hear what in the world do these things mean? How do I connect these dots? That's why I use the title, The Gathering Storm. And what do we do? If it were just a diagnosis of the sinking of the Titanic, that wouldn't be all that helpful. But there are things we can do. And you're doing it every day on your program and in your columns. There are things we can do. So let's just get out and do them. Joyful conservatives are the most disconcerting force in this kind of society.
Yeah, you and Arthur Brooks back to back. We can turn back anything. The Gathering Storm by Dr. Albert Mohler. It's in bookstores everywhere. Go out and get it, America. I really, really believe you need to read this. Thank you, Doctor. I also really, really believe that if you're going to I'm not going outside today. It's raining like the Ark I mean, it's NOAA time in D.C. right now, and that's because the hurricane came ashore. It's moving fast, and it's just going to keep right in for 3 days. So I got 10 miles in yesterday. Good brisk walk, good long walk. Not a run because I did the half marathon on Saturday. But, I'm 64. The next day you get better. You're going to have some aches and pains, but that's why ReliefFactor.com works for me. I carry in curcumin resveratrol. What's the number, Dwayne? What's the GDP number? The GDP number is 33.1% growth in the, holy smokes. I thought it would be 25%.
33.1.
33.1%.
There's your closing message.
Well, America, you can keep it or you can give it back.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
And I believe that many of you are as troubled as I am about the ability of mobs to do massive harm, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. This is a new America. If you were asked, make America great again, what does that mean? Well, one of the things it means is that if you steal, if you break into stores, if you set police cars on fire and do similarly violent acts, you are arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. That's a better America. A country that allows thugs, in the name of whatever they claim, thugs to steal, burn, loot. Steal and loot are synonymous, so steal and burn will not survive as a society. There are a lot of bad people in this world. The amount of bad done in the last 100 years in the name of high ideals is greater than the amount of bad done in this world in the name of bad ideals. I think you ought to be aware of that. That's why I take actions as far more serious than rhetoric.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Want to take you to two states, South Carolina and Kentucky. You know what Democrats are doing there? In Senate races featuring Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. I guess if you can't win on your own merits, you pull crap like this. A big Democratic political action committee is spending thousands and thousands of dollars promoting Constitution candidate Bill Bledsoe in South Carolina. They're calling him in the ads, and they're apparently saturating the airwaves right now. He's the only constitutional, true conservative, rather, on the ballot. Only problem is he dropped out in early October. He's not running anymore. And he endorsed Lindsey Graham. But because he's technically going to still be on the ballot, the Democrats now are trying to fool South Carolinians into believing that there is a more conservative alternative to Lindsey Graham. Because they're trying to get Jamie Harrison, the liberal Democrat, elected. That's all they're doing. They're doing the exact same thing in Kentucky. They're trying to siphon off votes from Mitch McConnell. A liberal super PAC is spending thousands of dollars.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator. GDP is up 33.1%. You got to be happy.
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you. Well, I'm happy for the people here in Arkansas and all around the country that the economy is getting back on its feet. The virus knocked our economy, knocked the world economy on its back in the spring. But having a record economic expansion over these last 3 months really clarifies the stakes of this election. If you want to continue that, you want more recovery, more jobs, more prosperity, vote for Donald Trump and the Republicans. If you want more lockdowns, more job losses, more misery, Joe Biden is your guy.
Now, Senator Cotton, I do have to rebuke you. You're underperforming. You're up only 55 points in Arkansas. So I'm a little bit worried that you're walking it into the line. Are you running through the tape?
Well, Hugh, don't believe every poll you see. We still need all of our supporters across Arkansas to get out and vote. I think I'll probably go do that myself today. So everyone between now and 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, go vote.
I want to point to John Ralston, probably the best state-specific political reporter in America and Nevada. The rural vote in Nevada is up 28% over what it was 4 years ago. Is that consistent with what we're seeing across the country, Senator Cotton? You've been out campaigning for everyone.
I think so, Hugh. Yeah, and the early vote here in Arkansas, too. The votes are just off the charts. We're going to have many counties that have more early votes this year than they did in 2016. And, of course, most counties in Arkansas qualify as rural. But, I was in Iowa yesterday. I've been in Georgia and Montana, Colorado, New Hampshire, Michigan. I just see a tremendous degree of enthusiasm for the president and for our great Republican senators and other Republican candidates. But we can't take any of that for granted. Everybody's still got to go out and vote. And better yet, take some friends to vote with you, too.
KeepAmericaAmerica.com, a project of the Job Creators Network, does tell people where they can go early vote, and we do need that in. Senator Cotton, the president and you and every Republican running for office can choose a final argument. They can choose the record-breaking GDP growth. They can choose Joe Biden shutting down the oil industry and transitioning. They can choose Tony Bobolinsky and Jim Biden and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, or they could choose all of the above. What's your recommendation?
Hugh, this election should come down to the very simple agenda that the two parties offer. Donald Trump and Republicans are going to give you more explosive growth, more jobs for American workers at higher wages. We're going to continue to control immigration. We're going to stop the crime and the disorder that we see on our streets, and we're going to continue to stand strong and proud in the world. Joe Biden is going to lock down our economy. He's going to cost you your jobs. He's going to give a no-strings-attached amnesty in the first 100 days of his administration, causing a surge of illegal immigration unlike anything we've seen, so your jobs will go to foreign workers. He's going to apologize and coddle criminals in our streets. He's going to prosecute police officers, and he's going to appease dictators around the world. That's the simple contrast.
I want to ask one specific question because you're on Senate Intel. Last night, your colleague David Purdue pointed out that John Ossoff had taken money from a Chinese company to make a movie. And I don't know if that's an influence operation or not, but do people understand why the Biden-China story is important enough, why this story mattered? Do they understand the scope of the CCP's influence operations?
I think most people with whom I speak are beginning to understand. I mean, they recognize simple fact is Hollywood hasn't made a movie with a Chinese bad guy in decades. Why is that? Because of Chinese money in Hollywood and access to Chinese movie theaters. That's just one small example of the kind of deep penetration that Chinese influence has into American society. It's amazing to me that someone like John Ossoff would be accepting Chinese money to make a movie with no consideration for the kind of exposure that gives him to the Communist Party.
And Mark Kelly in Arizona has the same problem that your colleague Martha McSally's been pointing to. But does it resonate with voters? Why, this isn't saying they're communist or spies or anyway an agent. They're just an influence operation. They don't understand it.
And they are naive if they are taking that kind of money, and they don't think that their funders in China are closely entangled with the Communist Party. Look, Hunter Biden taking money from Burisma in Ukraine was corrupt. No-show job, no experience whatsoever. But, Ukraine is like a nominal ally. We'd like them to be a better partner. We'd like them to turn to the West and turn away from Russia. We'd like them to clean up their act. China is our number one adversary in the world. There's no comparison between taking money from shady companies like Burisma in troubled countries that are still nominal partners like Ukraine versus taking money from Chinese oligarchs.
Okay. My last comment to you is I gather you did Joe Rogan's podcast and you were funny. Or no, you did the Ruthless podcast with Sonny Bunch and you were funny. And they said, people said you're never funny on this shit. Are you holding back? Are you funny with Sonny Bunch and not with me?
I'm saving my best material for Sonny Bunch because he gives me good movie recommendations.
I'm telling you, Senator, you got to run through the tape. Thank you, Tom Cotton. Good to talk to you, Senator. Get out and vote like he said. Go to keepamericaamerica.com. That is a project of a sponsor of this show, the Job Creators Network, and I'm glad to have them. And then finally, let me close with an appeal that after you get done figuring out where to vote and who to take with you to vote via keepamericaamerica.com, head over to hughhewitt.com and click on the Alliance Defending Freedom banner at the top. Yes, the economy is back. Yes, we grew 33% in the third quarter. That's just a stunning number. But we got to protect our freedoms, and Alliance Defending Freedom is doing that. Please go to hughhewitt.com and contribute. Then pop some champagne and get out there and vote and take people with you. People who've never voted before, go get them. Get them to the polls because they're going to like Donald Trump. Stay tuned, America, to this great station. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.